At the very genesis of existence, before time etched its first line across the void, the Creator brought forth the celestial domains and the tangible world we inhabit. But what existed within those heavenly realms before humankind even dreamt of existence? Archaeological findings and biblical scholarship converge to reveal complete civilizations of spiritual beings, intricate angelic hierarchies meticulously structured, and cosmic events of awe-inspiring magnitude already unfolding. We're talking about the primordial rebellion, a seismic upheaval that shook the very foundations of creation. The establishment of the divine throne room, a place of unimaginable splendor and power, and the complex spiritual network that flourished for countless ages before Adam drew his first breath. This is the profound backstory that transforms our understanding of humanity's place in the eternal, divine plan, a plan grander and more intricate than we can possibly imagine. Now, before we delve deeper into this narrative, I'd like to kindly ask you to engage with this content. If you find it enlightening and thought-provoking, please consider clicking that like button and subscribing to the channel if you haven't already. Your support allows us to continue producing material like this, designed to deepen your understanding of Scripture and fortify your relationship with the divine. It also helps us reach a wider audience who may be searching for answers to these fundamental questions. Additionally, we'd love to hear from you. Please share your location and the current time in your part of the world in the comments section below. Connecting with you, our audience, is incredibly valuable to us. We appreciate hearing your thoughts and perspectives. So, with no further ado, shall we embark on this journey of discovery together? The everlasting cornerstone, the Creator, existed before all existence. Before any celestial body ignited into a blazing star, before a single subatomic particle began its ceaseless dance, and before the very concept of temporal measurement possessed a designation, the Almighty was. This profound inquiry challenges every consciousness audacious enough to gaze beyond the boundaries of perceived reality. What came first? To approach this question, we must reverse the chronological flow, meticulously peeling away the layers of time, traversing epochs, thousands of years, and immeasurable ages. We move past ancient civilizations, the icy grip of glacial periods, and the majestic rise of mountain ranges. We arrive at that singular instant when our planet lay formless and void, a swirling sphere adrift in the cosmic abyss. But we cannot stop there. We must press onward, even further backward, past planetary bodies, past burgeoning star clusters, past the cataclysmic, explosive genesis of existence itself. And there, in that paradoxical realm where the very notion of before loses its meaning, we encounter something that defies logical comprehension. Timeless being. The ancient Hebrew texts open with striking clarity. In the beginning, at the start, the Almighty. These few words simultaneously resolve and mystify. The commencement of precisely what? Of all that was made, certainly of the physical cosmos and of chronological progression as we understand it. But not the commencement of the divine. Scripture presupposes his existence. It provides no account of his origins because the very inquiry fundamentally misunderstands his essence. The Creator stands beyond the framework he himself fashioned. Consider this analogy. A painter precedes his canvas. A builder exists prior to the structure they erect. The maker remains intrinsically separate from what is made. Yet, even mortal creators manipulate materials that already exist, operating within pre-established temporal boundaries. They alter and rearrange. The Almighty, however, formed everything from absolute nothingness. The Latin expression ex nihilo perfectly embodies this truth. No pre-existing substances, no waiting canvas. Pure and complete creation arising solely from his intention and authority. This doctrinal concept speaks to divine self-sufficiency. He springs from nothing, relies upon nothing, and needs nothing. Whereas everything within our sphere of awareness demands an origin, a catalyst, an inception point, the divine simply is. The burning bush proclaimed this timeless truth to Moses. I am who I am. Continuous tense, timeless tense, being as essential nature. This self-reliance utterly revolutionizes our understanding of deity. The Almighty did not fashion creation out of isolation, nor did he construct the universe to address some perceived emptiness within his nature. He harbored no unaddressed requirements, no deficiency that demanded remedy. Formation sprang from fullness, not deficiency, from abundant giving, not obligation. Thinkers from antiquity, striving to grasp this concept, referenced the prime mover unmoved, the initial origin, the essential being upon which all dependent entities rest. However, the deity revealed in Holy Writ surpasses mere abstract philosophy. He embodies character, volition, feeling, and design. He transcends being simply an impersonal energy or abstract principle. He represents personhood. More precisely, three persons. The triune Godhead constitutes Christianity's most unique and, admittedly, complex teaching. One deity existing timelessly as three distinct persons: Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Not three separate deities. Not one deity assuming three different roles, but three equally divine, equally eternal persons united in one divine nature, one purpose, and one being. Prior to anything else existing, this celestial fellowship existed. The Father, the timeless origin. The Son, the timeless expression through whom everything would ultimately come into being. The Spirit, the timeless force and manifestation. They dwelled in flawless connection, flawless affection, and flawless oneness. No ranking system, no lesser status, no discord, only a perpetual movement of reciprocal respect and profound satisfaction. This carries tremendous weight for understanding subsequent events. Formation does not spring from an isolated deity speaking alone. It flows from the overflowing abundance of Trinitarian devotion. The Father voices, the Word brings forth, and the Spirit remains present, giving strength. Let us create. The divine will announced at humanity's formation. Plural phrasing, not the imperial pronoun of earthly rulers, but the eternal collective of divine fellowship. John's Gospel extends back to this pre-formation actuality. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was with God in the beginning. The Son's presence preceded Bethlehem, preceded Abraham, preceded Eden, identical in past, present, and all time forward. Scholars of doctrine reference the perpetual generation of the Son, not formed, not constructed, but timelessly brought forth. The Father perpetually generates the Son. The Spirit perpetually emanates from the Father and the Son. These connections possess no starting moment. They simply exist, have eternally existed, and will perpetually exist. Yet human language falters beneath the weight of these profound realities. We employ terminology like brought forth and emanates because we lack superior alternatives, yet we readily recognize their inadequacy. How does one articulate the completely singular using vocabulary crafted for commonplace things? Still, Holy Writ maintains this intricacy because it discloses something vital. Affection originates within the divine essence. A singular deity might possess might. A singular deity might contain awareness. But affection demands connection. The Trinity has exhibited affection perpetually, flawlessly, without commencement or conclusion. Whenever the Creator forms entities with the capacity for devotion, He does not invent something alien to His character. He broadens what has continuously characterized His very being. This timeless devotion displays itself as splendor. The scholarly designation is kavod in the Hebrew tongue, doxa in the Greek language, substance, gravity, brilliant magnificence. Divine splendor represents His disclosed perfection, His obvious excellence. Prior to any formed perception witnessing it, the Trinity dwelled in reciprocal exaltation. The Son honors the Father honors the Son, and the Spirit honors them both. Complete contentment, complete elation, complete tranquility. No driving desire compelled the Almighty toward creation. No enhancement was achievable to His condition. No accomplishment could supplement His wholeness. The Trinity persisted in total, unblemished, boundless gladness. This forms the basis of everything. When you comprehend this, formation shifts from divine requirement to divine liberality. The cosmos does not represent the deity's healing process. Our planet was not built to resolve His difficulties. Humankind was not devised to satisfy His longings. Everything subsequent springs from plenty, from the overflow of complete devotion, pursuing manifestation beyond its own bounds. The perpetual deity required nothing, yet he opted to form creation regardless. Deep thinkers grapple with this puzzle. For what reason would a flawless being take any action? Taking action suggests insufficiency, something desired but not yet obtained. The traditional response states that the divine creates to share his excellence, to broadcast his magnificence, and to expand the circle of devotion to others who could share in it. Formation transforms into an act of highest giving. Prior to the initial command of existence, the Almighty persisted in complete awareness of every potential outcome. He perceived every conceivable cosmos, every potential sequence of events, every imaginable arrangement of existence. His awareness was not anticipatory but perpetual. He did not acquire knowledge of future happenings. He simply possessed knowledge, had perpetually possessed it, and would perpetually possess it. Within this timeless deliberation, the triune deity made plans. The Father put forward, the Son consented, and the Spirit enabled. They chose to form a universe, to populate it with living things, and to honor it with beings fashioned in their likeness. They anticipated everything beforehand, the magnificence, the sorrow, the uprising, the rescue, and they moved forward. Nonetheless, this conveys something profound regarding divine character. The deity did not form in innocent hopefulness, unaware of the expenses. He understood the cost of fashioning free entities with the ability to love, which inherently necessitates the possibility of refusal. He understood a deliverance operation would prove necessary. The sacrificial lamb was predetermined from creation's establishment. Scripture teaches us that the cross was not an alternate strategy hurriedly devised when humanity stumbled. It was interwoven into the initial blueprint. The perpetual deity selected to form a time-bound realm. The unlimited deity selected to engage with the limited. The essential being selected to produce dependent entities. The self-reliant Trinity selected to fashion creatures who would rely upon them completely. This provides the framework for all subsequent occurrences. Every celestial body, every world, every breathing thing, every human being exists because the timeless deity, lacking nothing whatsoever, opted to create a not from external pressure, not from internal need, but from love. The celestial spaces and the terrestrial sphere will announce his magnificence. The spiritual entities will offer worship. Humanity will carry his likeness. Yet prior to any of this existing, prior to existence itself possessing significance, the divine remained flawless in sanctity, fulfilled in happiness, perpetual in essence. Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, one deity evermore. Here is where everything commences. The celestial dimensions and their inhabitants, fashioning the invisible domain. The initial act of formation stays concealed from mortal vision. Before radiance pierced the shadows, before the initial world solidified, before any material substance assumed shape, the Almighty fashioned the unseen. Holy Writ offers quick views, partial revelations, hints dispersed throughout writings composed ages apart. The Book of Job, that ancient text, references the time when the dawn stars lifted their voices in unison, and all the divine sons celebrated with shouts. These observers were present before our planet's groundwork was established. They witnessed its formation. This indicates they existed beforehand. The physical cosmos possessed spectators at its emergence. Students of theology identify this as the unseen domain, the spiritual plane, the celestial locations. It functions according to different principles than the material. It persists beyond our three spatial dimensions and sequential time. We lack the means to quantify it, capture it visually, or access it in our current condition. Yet Scripture maintains it possesses reality, contains inhabitants, and remains dynamic. Paul's correspondence to the Colossians declares without ambiguity that through him everything was fashioned, entities in the celestial sphere and upon the terrestrial sphere, observable and unobservable, whether positions of authority or forces or governing powers or jurisdictions. Everything has been fashioned through him and for his purposes, observable and unobservable. The unseen arrives initially, the seen follows after. This ordering carries theological weight. The spiritual comes first and holds supremacy over the material. The invisible anchors what is visible. Material existence does not represent ultimate existence. It constitutes a portion, a segment, a specific expression of a larger reality. The Creator fashioned the celestial dimensions themselves, not the atmospheric expanse we witness, but the residence of divine manifestation, various strata, various dimensions. Paul references being transported to the third celestial level. The ancient Hebrew people grasped Shemayim, the celestial spaces, as multiple. The visible dome overhead represented merely one stratum above and beyond extended domains that mortal vocabulary could scarcely articulate. Into these locations, the Almighty produced the initial aware beings, the angels. This designation signifies messenger in both Hebrew and Greek tongues. Yet this role represents merely a portion of their essence. These entities were fashioned as immaterial spirits unhindered by material bodies, though able to adopt them when required. They hold mental capacity far surpassing mortal ability. Their strength functions at levels we cannot comprehend. Their understanding extends across ages. Still, they remain creatures, not creators. They possess a starting point even if they lack an ending. They depend entirely upon the Almighty for their ongoing being. They lack divinity though they engage in divine duties. Holy Writ portrays them in classifications, levels, and structured arrangements. The most comprehensive organization surfaces across multiple passages compiled by scholars of theology into a framework. At the supreme levels exist the seraphim, the burning entities who encircle the divine throne proclaiming, "Holy, holy, holy." Their very designation speaks of their nearness to celestial fire. The cherubim represent mighty entities designated to protect sacred locations, for countenances, numerous wings, visual organs covering their shapes. These would subsequently maintain vigilance at Eden's gateway, blocking re-entry to the tree granting life. Their representations would be stitched into the sanctuary's draperies, formed onto the covenant containers covering thrones, dominions, forces, jurisdictions, principalities, archangels. Every title indicates role, level, duty. Not every angel possesses equal strength or status. They constitute a structured community, a universal hierarchy mirroring celestial governance. Michael represents one of the leading princes, an archangel, a warrior possessing tremendous capability. Gabriel functions as a unique messenger, manifesting at pivotal instances in mortal chronicles to convey the deity's most significant revelations. Additional angels stay without individual names, their separate identities matching less than their unified function. What constituted that function? Adoration, duty, carrying out divine purpose throughout creation. The angels were fashioned to amplify the Creator's splendor. They held free choice. This grows critically significant subsequently, yet their inherent tendency directed them toward worship. They grasped without uncertainty who merited reverence. They possessed immediate access to divine manifestation, encountering His magnificence without intermediaries. They additionally functioned as administrators of the material formation once it appeared. Daniel references angelic leaders allocated to peoples. Revelation portrays angels governing atmospheric forces and flames. The letter to the Hebrews identifies them as serving spirits dispatched to assist those destined to receive deliverance, showing their position in the deity's broader design. They persisted in complete arrangement, each comprehending their location, their role, their satisfaction. No uprising tainted their numbers. No resentment contaminated their bond. The celestial assembly existed in the direct manifestation of the divine, saturated with His magnificence, united in intention. What duration did this condition persist? Holy Writ offers no temporal measure, potentially millions of years by our calculation, potentially a fleeting instant. Temporal progression itself operates distinctly in the spiritual domain. What carries significance is not the span, but the state. Complete concord, complete serenity, complete adoration. The celestial domain resonated with glorification, innumerable voices, flawless harmony, perpetual melody. The created served the Creator without hesitation or qualification. This represented the model, the designed arrangement of complete existence. The Almighty did not fashion servants from any need for assistance. The Trinity requires nothing. The celestial assembly exists to share in and mirror divine splendor, to widen the sphere of adoration, and to contribute their expressions to perpetual praise. Certain angels received remarkable abilities. Ezekiel portrays beings possessing numerous faces and circular forms within circular forms, their edges filled with visual organs, their actions coordinated with the divine spirit. These accounts push vocabulary to its limits, attempting to express actualities that exceed ordinary classifications. The meaning stands evident. The Creator populated the unseen domain with entities of extraordinary diversity, strength, and intention. They lacked uniformity. They held varying capabilities, varying ranks, and varying tasks. Yet they possessed one core trait. They were fashioned righteous. Every angel sprang from divine creative purpose, utterly holy, utterly aligned toward him. Their reasoning contained no distortion. Their determination held no defiance. Their sentiments understood no covetousness. They persisted as the deity designed, demonstrating his understanding in their formation and his magnificence in their worship. The dawn stars mentioned in Job, probably indicating the supreme angels, lifted their voices at Earth's formation. They observed the divine establishing the foundation stone of the material realm. They rejoiced as the initial physical components emerged into being. They comprehended in ways beyond our grasp the importance of the Creator's actions. He was broadening formation past the spiritual. He was producing a domain where spirit and substance would converge. He was arranging a platform for a completely new category of being. Creatures formed from earthly elements yet carrying celestial likeness, material yet holding eternal souls. However, that arrived subsequently. For the present, the celestial spaces existed, filled with innumerable multitudes of angelic entities. They resided in divine radiance. They executed his purpose flawlessly. They knew nothing of transgression, mortality, or defiance. The universe possessed its initial residence, and they were spectacular. Immaterial spirits of extraordinary might, unblemished in their formed condition, devoted wholly to divine magnificence. The unseen domain operated as the Creator intended. Structured, intentional, worshipful. This represented the celestial assembly prior to the rebellion, flawless servants of a flawless deity residing in flawless radiance, participating in flawless adoration. The cosmos had started populating with conscious existence, and all remained excellent. The consecrated cherub, the elevation and descent of Lucifer. Amongst every angel, one distinguished himself. His designation was Lucifer, bearer of illumination, son of dawn. The writings portray him using language preserved for no other fashioned entity. Ezekiel's oracle, outwardly directed to the ruler of Tyre, extends past any mortal sovereign to portray a being of breathtaking magnificence. You represented the stamp of flawlessness, filled with understanding and flawless in attractiveness. Consider those terms deliberately. The stamp of flawlessness, the finished design, the supreme manifestation of fashion superiority. The divine crafted this being to embody the greatest potential of angelic being. The oracle proceeds. You existed in Eden, the divine garden. Every valuable gem decorated you. Carnelian, chrysolite, emerald, topaz, onyx, jasper, lapis lazuli, turquoise, and beryl. Your settings and mountings were fashioned of gold. Lucifer's very essence glittered with integrated precious stones, not decorations attached afterward, but inherent to his construction. He mirrored radiance in innumerable hues, a breathing crystal of celestial workmanship. The gold settings indicate musical characteristics. This being potentially generated worship through his actual composition, a breathing instrument of glorification. Upon the day you were fashioned, they were made ready. Fashioned, not brought forth. Made, not possessing independent existence. Regardless of how elevated Lucifer stayed a creature, this differentiation would grow crucial. The passage discloses his station. You were consecrated as a protecting cherub, thus I designated you. You stood upon the sacred mountain of the divine. You moved among the blazing stones. Consecrated, designated for unique intention, not simply a cherub, but the consecrated cherub, singular, exceptional. His responsibility positioned him upon the divine's sacred elevation, the nucleus of celestial administration. The blazing stones, potentially the identical burning entities, the seraphim in another manifestation, indicated the approach to the divine seat. Lucifer possessed entry to the most sanctified location in being. He moved where additional angels were unable. He functioned in the direct manifestation of the divine. His station surpassed all except potentially the absolute highest levels. Certain scholars of theology propose he potentially directed the worship of the celestial realm, guiding the angelic chorus, coordinating the perpetual composition of glorification. Isaiah contributes an additional element. How you have fallen from heaven, O morning star, son of the dawn. Morning star, the most luminous radiance in the sky before sunrise, the final star observable as daylight arrives, the announcer of the approaching sun. Lucifer radiated with a luminosity exceeded solely by the divine himself. All aspects of his construction conveyed superiority. His understanding exceeded all additional fashioned mental capacity. His attractiveness surpassed all additional fashion shapes. His station raised him beyond innumerable angels. His intention focused on the supreme vocation, worship and duty in divine manifestation. You were without fault in your ways from the day you were fashioned. Without fault, lacking imperfection, morally flawless. Lucifer's formation incorporated no weakness, no deficiency, no inadequacy. The divine fashioned him precisely as planned. The cherub's virtue was inherent, not borrowed. He selected goodness because goodness corresponded with his character and his awareness of the divine. What span did this flawlessness persist? The writings provide no temporal measure, yet they indicate a distinct shift, until moral corruption was discovered in you. Until. This term bears crushing significance. Flawlessness yielded to distortion. Virtue shifted to defiance. The most luminous of beings commenced to fall into shadow. What transformed? Ezekiel. Ezekiel provides the assessment. Your heart grew arrogant because of your attractiveness, and you distorted your understanding due to your magnificence. Arrogance, the insidious seed of all subsequent transgressions, took root in Lucifer's heart. He gazed upon his splendor, undeniably real and overwhelming, yet made a fatal misjudgment. He failed to discern the crucial distinction between mirrored magnificence and innate magnificence, mistaking his created superiority for divine essence itself. His attractiveness, designed to inspire worship towards the fashioner, instead became a reflecting pool wherein he saw only himself, an idol of his own making. His immense mental capacity, rather than being eliminated, became twisted, perverted. He began to wield his cognitive abilities not to comprehend the divine on a deeper level, but to rationalize his own self-proclaimed elevation, justifying his ascent in his own mind. Awareness devoid of modesty transforms into a dangerous weapon, an instrument wielded against truth itself. Isaiah documents what we can only imagine as Lucifer's internal pronouncements, the silent declarations of rebellion echoing within his heart. I will climb to the celestial spaces. I will elevate my seat beyond the celestial bodies of the divine. I will position myself enthroned upon the assembly mount, upon the extreme peaks of Mount Zaphon. I will climb beyond the summit of the atmospheric masses. I will render myself comparable to the Supreme Being. 5 pronouncements of I will, each a step further down the path of defiance, a gradual intensification of rebellion. This sequence reveals the extent of his delusion. Initially, he sought to climb to the celestial spaces, despite already residing there. Then, he aimed to elevate his seat above other angels. Next came the claim to the assembly mount, the very seat of celestial administration. His ambition swelled further, reaching beyond the atmospheric masses into the realm of divine magnificence itself. Ultimately, he desired nothing less than to transform himself into the likeness of the deity, not to serve the divine more effectively, not to mirror the divine more accurately, but to become the divine. This ambition embodies the ultimate absurdity, a fashioned being seeking to displace the fashioner, a dependent existence asserting separation from the essential being, a creature whose every moment of existence relied upon divine sustaining strength, scheming to supplant him. The sheer impossibility of the endeavor doesn't diminish the reality of the attempt. Lucifer's arrogance blinded him to fundamental truth. His attractiveness became a deceptive veil, obscuring the truth. His understanding, distorted by arrogance, generated spectacular foolishness. He saw his magnificence, yet disregarded its origin. He inspected his strength, yet disregarded its provider. He contemplated his station, and desired one even higher still. At some point in the timeless existence of the spiritual domain, within the courts of the celestial realm, amidst the actual manifestation of the divine, the consecrated cherub made his choice. He would refuse service. He would govern. He would refuse worship. He would receive worship. He would refuse to mirror divine magnificence. He would claim magnificence for his own. The most attractive being ever fashioned transformed into the most sorrowful. The most understanding, possessed of unparalleled mental capacity, transformed into the most unwise. The supreme ranking servant transformed into the initial defier. Ezekiel concludes his portrayal with ominous anticipation. Thus, I propelled you in dishonor from the divine elevation, and I removed you, protecting cherub, from amongst the blazing stones. This is historical tense from the oracle's viewpoint. Yet, from the perpetual perspective, the removal was predetermined. The instant arrogance took root in Lucifer's heart. His descent became inevitable. One cannot remain in divine manifestation while simultaneously opposing divine jurisdiction. Radiance and shadow cannot occupy the same space. Lucifer, however, did not fall alone. Revelation speaks of the dragon's tail, sweeping a third of the celestial bodies from the expanse. This mysterious representation likely indicates Lucifer's sway over other angels. His defiance proved infectious. His reasoning, however twisted, became compelling, his perspective, however flawed, attractive. How did he sway them? What logic could induce otherwise flawless beings to reject flawless goodness? Perhaps he questioned divine intentions, sowing seeds of doubt. Perhaps he promised increased liberty, more elevated stations, independent existence, the intoxicating allure of self-determination. Perhaps he suggested that divine instructions were arbitrary limitations rather than expressions of loving understanding. The specific reasoning remains elusive, shrouded in the mysteries of the celestial realm, yet its potency is undeniable. A third of the celestial assemblies chose to follow Lucifer instead of the divine. The most attractive being transformed into the most dreadful. The bearer of illumination transformed into the ruler of shadow. Lucifer, the son of dawn, morphed into Satan, the adversary. The flawless tranquility of the celestial realm stood on the precipice of destruction. The conflict in the celestial domain, the universal uprising, had begun. The choice was made. Lucifer would refuse submission, and those who followed him would refuse as well. The celestial domain, which had known only concord since its creation, now experienced separation. This was not a mere difference of opinion, not a philosophical disagreement, but conflict in its purest and most devastating form. John's Apocalypse portrays it in stark terms. Conflict erupted in the celestial realm. Michael alongside his angels engaged against the dragon, and the dragon alongside his angels engaged in return. Conflict in the celestial domain, the very expression evokes shock. We envision the celestial realm as the domain of perpetual tranquility, where discord cannot exist. Yet here, in the spiritual plane, combat erupts, not with blades and shields, but with the force of immaterial beings. On one side stands Michael, the archangel, whose very designation signifies, who resembles the divine. An inquiry that serves as a proclamation. Michael leads the angels who remain faithful. These beings have witnessed Lucifer's arrogance, perceived his reasoning, and chosen otherwise. They will refuse to follow the consecrated cherub into defiance. On the opposing side stands the dragon, Satan, the primordial serpent, all designations for the being once known as Lucifer. He leads a third of the celestial assembly. Innumerable mighty beings, with strength beyond mortal comprehension, now arrayed in opposition to their fashioner. The battle lines were drawn along the most fundamental division imaginable. Fidelity opposing defiance, worship opposing arrogance, submission opposing independence. What does conflict look like between spiritual entities? Holy Writ offers glimpses, but our terrestrial warfare barely reflects it. Angels possess the strength to seal the atmospheric dome, to inflict calamities upon peoples, to overthrow kingdoms. They manifest as blazing flames, travel at the speed of thought, function beyond material limitations. When such beings collide, creation itself trembles. The scroll of Daniel provides a glimpse into angelic confrontation. The oracle supplication receives an immediate response, yet the celestial courier experiences a delay of 21 days. The leader of the Persian domain opposed me. Subsequently, Michael, one of the leading princes, arrived to provide assistance. Angelic leaders administering to peoples, confrontations persisting for weeks. Michael intervening because the opposition proved too powerful for the courier alone. This represents spiritual conflict at the universal magnitude, largely invisible to mortal perception, yet deeply impacting mortal chronicles. Now amplify that confrontation to encompass a third of the celestial assembly. The magnitude becomes incomprehensible, yet the outcome was never in doubt. The dragon lacked adequate strength, and they forfeited their location in the celestial domain. The immense dragon was hurled downward, that primordial serpent identified as the devil or Satan, who directs the entire world into error. He was propelled to the terrestrial sphere alongside his angels. Lacking adequate strength, notwithstanding their immense force, notwithstanding their numbers, notwithstanding their tactical positioning, they could not overcome the divine, because the deity is simply more powerful. He is the source of all strength. Every measure of force Satan employs is borrowed, obtained, provided by the very being he seeks to displace. The uprising is spectacular in its sorrow and nonsensical in its impossibility. Lucifer cannot create. He can only distort what the divine has created. He cannot provide existence. He can only transact immortality. He cannot produce radiance. He can only project shadows. His entire being relies upon the divine. He wages war against the very source of his being. Michael leads the faithful assembly not because he surpasses Satan in raw power, but because he fights for truth. His designation, who resembles the divine, represents his battle cry. The response reverberates throughout the universe. Nobody, nothing, never. The defiers are cast out, thrust downward, removed from the celestial domain. This removal holds profound significance. The celestial realm transcends a mere location. It is a state of being, the place of divine unmediated manifestation, where his magnificence radiates without covering or shadow. To be removed from the celestial domain is to experience separation from the source of all excellence, all radiance, all truth. Satan, along with his angels, now appropriately identified as demons, are banned from the throne room. The blazing stones where Lucifer once moved are sealed off to him forever. The worship he once directed continues without his presence. The magnificence he once mirrored transforms into the radiance that condemns him. Yet they are not eliminated, not yet. Their removal from the celestial domain does not equate to their extraction from existence. They are propelled to the terrestrial sphere, a designation that here likely signifies the fashion realm broadly, not specifically the world that would be shaped. Why not eliminate them immediately? Why allow their ongoing existence? Holy Writ does not offer a clear answer, but theological contemplation proposes explanations. Divine righteousness demands that defiance face its full consequences. The demon's downfall will ultimately reveal divine virtue more clearly than their instant destruction ever could. Their continued existence fulfills purposes we may not fully comprehend, interwoven into the mysterious divine plan. Jesus would later refer to this event. I observed Satan fall like lightning from the celestial domain. Historical tense. Observed. The conflict was real, the defeat certain, the removal finalized. A voice in John's Apocalypse announces, "Now have come the salvation and the power and the kingdom of our God, and the authority of his Christ. For the accuser of our brothers has been thrown down, who accuses them day and night before our God." This becomes Satan's new role. Unable to displace the divine, unable to maintain his station, he redirects his focus to destroying what the divine cherishes. He accuses, he misleads, he entices, he distorts. What he cannot govern, he seeks to devastate. Jude's letter references angels who failed to preserve their positions of authority but abandoned their proper dwelling. They are now held in darkness, bound with everlasting chains for judgment on the great day. Certain demons are already confined, awaiting final judgment. Others remain active, though their ultimate destiny is sealed. Peter writes of the divine casting defiant angels into the abyss, positioning them in chains of darkness to be retained for judgment. The Greek term used is Tartarus, the deepest chasm, the place of universal confinement. Not every fallen angel faces the same immediate fate. Some are secured. Some are free to operate within limitations. But all are doomed. The conflict ends with clear victors and vanquished. Michael, along with the faithful angels, prevails. Satan, along with his followers, is vanquished, removed, destined for destruction. Yet, though they have lost the battle, they continue to wage war. The universal uprising introduced something previously unknown to creation: transgression. Moral wrongdoing entered existence through Lucifer's arrogance. The flawless arrangement of creation now contained a malignancy, a distortion, a toxin that would proliferate. The spiritual domain, once wholly dedicated to divine magnificence, now housed beings committed to opposing him. This carries immense weight for understanding what follows. When material creation begins, when the terrestrial sphere takes shape, when humanity appears, the spiritual conflict is already underway. The serpent in the garden is not a random element, but a defeated commander seeking revenge. The demons know their time is limited. Revelation records their lament. "Woe to the earth and the sea, because the devil has gone down to you. He is filled with fury, because he knows that his time is short." Notwithstanding thousands of years of mortal chronicles from our perspective, notwithstanding ages of spiritual conflict, Satan operates under a time constraint. His defeat is certain, his judgment guaranteed, his power limited. He cannot create. He can only destroy. He cannot provide existence. He can only distort it. He cannot defeat the divine. He can only rage against the inevitable. The conflict in the celestial domain establishes the universal backdrop for all subsequent events. Good and evil are now locked in perpetual conflict. Angels and demons are not mere symbols. They are real. Spiritual conflict is not a metaphor. It is a reality. The consequences are eternal. The divine remains supreme. His throne remains secure. His plan continues. His ultimate triumph is assured. But the battle rages on, transferring from the celestial domain to a small world on the verge of emerging from chaos. The terrestrial sphere, the shapeless and empty state, the planet's primordial condition. In the beginning, the divine fashioned the celestial dimensions and the terrestrial sphere. The familiar words begin Genesis. Yet the very next verse presents a mystery that has occupied theologians for millennia. Presently the terrestrial sphere existed shapeless and empty, and shadow existed upon the exterior of the profound, and the spirit of the divine was moving upon the aquatic masses. Existed shapeless and empty. The Hebrew terms carry significance. Tohu vavu. The expression appears together in only two other places in Holy Writ, both portraying judgment and devastation. Tohu signifies waste, void without shape. Vavu amplifies it. Empty, vacant, disordered. This depiction clashes with our expectations. The divine fashions and creation is good. The divine speaks and order emerges. Yet here, our planet exists in a state of shapelessness and emptiness, shrouded in darkness. What happened between verse 1 and verse 2? Two major interpretive traditions offer differing responses, both attempting to reconcile this primordial disorder with divine creative perfection. The interval concept proposes a genuine interval in temporal progression. The divine fashioned the celestial dimensions and the terrestrial sphere, initially flawless, but then disaster struck, specifically Satan's defiance and descent to the terrestrial sphere. This universal judgment reduced the world to devastation. The shapeless, empty state embodies not the initial creation, but the consequence of destruction. When the divine begins the creative sequence, he is genuinely refashioning, repairing, reconstructing what was lost. Advocates point to multiple scriptures. Isaiah portrays the terrestrial sphere as not being fashioned empty using tohu, yet Genesis portrays it as precisely that. Jeremiah employs tohu vavu to portray judgment upon the land. Satan's descent, they argue, devastated an initially flawless terrestrial sphere. The young planet interpretation adopts a different approach. The shapeless, empty state embodies the initial condition of unprocessed substance, not devastation, but incompletion. The divine fashioned matter, then began to mold and arrange it. Just as a sculptor begins with unformed clay, the divine begins with unformed substance. The shadow and aquatic masses portray the starting point, not the consequence of judgment. Both perspectives grapple with the same perplexing reality. Our planet's initial portrayed condition is disorder. Shadow covers the profound. This is not the shadow of nighttime, alternating with daylight. Daylight and nighttime do not yet exist. This is primordial shadow, the absence of any source of light, complete, absolute universal shadow. The profound, Tehom in Hebrew, suggests vast aquatic masses, not oceanic bodies in the modern understanding, but perhaps the primordial substance from which everything would be shaped, portrayed in liquid terms. Ancient Near Eastern creation narratives frequently featured primeval aquatic masses, disorderly energies that the deity had to subdue and organize. Yet here lies the vital distinction. These aquatic masses are not opposing the divine. They are not hostile forces he must combat. They simply exist in an unarranged state. The shadow, the profound, the shapeless, empty state, all await the divine ordering word. And there, amidst this disorder, moves the spirit of the divine. The verb is mashvet, moving, brooding, hovering. The same term describes an eagle hovering over its offspring. The representation suggests protective manifestation, creative energy poised for action. The spirit has not created the disorder. Rather, he is positioned to reshape it. This depiction carries theological weight. Before the first creative word is spoken, the Spirit is already present. The Trinity is at work. Even in this primordial moment, the Father will speak. The Son represents the Word through whom creation comes into being. The Spirit empowers and sustains. Some scholars see connections to ancient cosmologies. Babylonian creation narratives depict primordial aquatic masses, shadowy disorder that must be organized. The Genesis narrative uses comparable imagery, but fundamentally differs in doctrine. The aquatic masses lack divinity. They do not oppose the divine. They simply represent the initial substance awaiting his command. But why begin here? Why portray the terrestrial sphere in such desolate terms? One answer is to magnify what follows. The greater the disorder, the more remarkable the ordering. The deeper the shadow, the more spectacular the light. By beginning with shapeless emptiness, Genesis emphasizes that all order, all beauty, all goodness comes from the divine creative word. Another answer is to establish a pattern. Divine work throughout Holy Writ frequently follows this pattern. He accepts the damaged and repairs it. He finds the lost and brings it home. He enters chaos and creates ordered universe. The creation sequence foreshadows all subsequent restoration. The condition of the terrestrial sphere at this moment is one of profound isolation. No celestial bodies radiate in the expanse, because the expanse does not yet exist. No sun warms the surface because the sun has not been created. No moon reflects light across the aquatic masses, because the moon and nighttime have no meaning. Just shapeless substance, perpetual shadow, the profound, and the spirit moving, anticipating. This represents the surface. These represent the unprocessed ingredients. This represents the starting point. Not a completed work, but a work about to begin. Not devastation beyond hope, but a project filled with potential. Not disorder as an opponent, but disorder as possibility. The passage creates anticipation. Everything hangs suspended in dark quietness. The stage is set, but empty. The auditorium is built, but dark. The moment stretches, undefined and pregnant with possibility. Then into this shadow, into this shapeless emptiness, into this quiet anticipation, the divine speaks, and everything changes. The first day, instructing light and order. 3 words shatter the silence. Let there be light, and there is light. No gradual brightening, no slow illumination, but instantaneous, complete, spectacular light fills existence. The shadow that had covered everything is driven back, defined, separated. This is the first creative command recorded in Holy Writ. Not a petition, not a suggestion, but a proclamation. The divine speaks and reality obeys. The interval between word and deed is non-existent. Let there be, and there was fill the same instant. But observe what is unusual. The sun does not yet exist. The moon is not created. The stars are absent. These sources of light appear later on the 4th day. What, then, is this light that now illuminates creation? The passage does not explain. It simply states that light exists, separate from celestial bodies. This confounds our normal understanding. We assume light requires a source. Yet here, light exists prior to the sources we associate with it. Some theologians propose that this represents divine magnificence made visible, his celestial brilliance permeating material creation. The divine himself is light. John's letter suggests that this initial light represents the uncreated light of divine manifestation, temporarily illuminating his work. Others suggest that this represents electromagnetic energy in its unformed state. Light is force and particle, not yet concentrated in celestial bodies, but filling the space. The divine creates light as a fundamental characteristic of the cosmos before assigning its specific sources. Regardless of its essence, its impact is immediate and profound. The shadow is no longer complete. The emptiness is no longer total. Something has fundamentally changed. The divine perceived that the light was excellent. Excellent. The first assessment of quality in Holy Writ. The divine evaluates his work and finds it good. This becomes a recurring phrase throughout creation. 7 times the divine declares his work good. Once, at the end, he declares it very good. The light's excellence transcends mere visual appeal. It fulfills its purpose. It enables. It reveals. Light makes perception possible. Conveys warmth. It energizes. Without light, nothing else that follows can function. Then, the divine performs something vital. The divine. He separated the radiance from the shadow. Separation, division, differentiation. These were the divine acts, the chisel shaping the formless clay. This act of sundering becomes the very blueprint for creation. God didn't obliterate the shadow, banish it to some forgotten corner of existence. Instead, he defined it, distinguished it, establishing boundaries that never existed before. He fashioned limits, differentiations, classifications, giving structure where there was only void. This separation wasn't arbitrary, a chaotic scattering of elements. It was an act of deliberate arrangement, wresting order from disorder. Where once everything existed as a singular, undifferentiated mass, now there were distinct domains, each with its own characteristics. Radiance had its designated place, and shadow had its own, separate and distinct. They were not the same, not interchangeable, not one and the same. The divine then named what he had created. He identified the radiance as day and the shadow as night. This was the first act of designation, the first inscription upon the blank slate of existence. Designation establishes jurisdiction, signifies intention, and the one who designates holds dominion over that which receives designation. The radiance became day, and the shadow became night. They possessed character, purpose, significance. And there was evening, and there was morning the first day. Evening first, shadow preceding radiance in the daily cycle. This arrangement might seem counterintuitive to us, accustomed as we are to thinking of sunrise as the beginning of the day. Yet, the Hebrew calendar marks the commencement of each day at twilight. Evening arrives first, followed by morning. Shadow yields to radiance. This first day established something far more profound than just the existence of light. It inaugurated temporal progression. Before this moment, time had no meaning in the grand scheme of creation. The shapeless emptiness existed in a timeless void. But now, with radiance and shadow separated, with evening and morning demarcating boundaries, time began its relentless march forward. Temporal progression, while separate from the divine, who exists beyond it, becomes the very fabric of existence for his creation. He fashions time-bound being for his formation to occupy. Historical, contemporary, and approaching periods now have meaning. Sequential arrangement becomes possible. Chronicles could be written. The first day, therefore, forms the very foundation for everything that would follow. Radiance allows for observation. Separation makes arrangement possible. Designation enables comprehension. Temporal progression makes sequential order achievable. Without this first day, nothing else could function. Vegetation couldn't grow without light. Creatures couldn't perceive without day. Mortals couldn't quantify being without the movement of time. The divine begins not with the spectacular, but with the essential. Not with constellations or towering mountains, but with light and time. He builds from the foundation upward. First the fundamental, then the specific. This creative design also reveals the divine methodology. He speaks, and it is so. The expression of the divine possesses innate power. When the divine commands, creation obeys. There is no resistance, no negotiation, no struggle. Perfect authority meets perfect compliance. This stands in stark contrast to other ancient creation myths. Babylonian narratives depict gods battling chaotic, watery forces, struggling to impose order. Egyptian narratives present deities emerging from primordial ooze. But Genesis reveals a God who needs only to speak. The manifestation of radiance also serves as the first tangible evidence of the divine character permeating creation. Radiance symbolizes truth, purity, awareness, and excellence. This presence signals that creation will reflect its creator. The cosmos will be comprehensible, structured, and intentional. The shadow is not eliminated but characterized. It becomes night, fulfilling its own purpose. Shadow provides rest. It establishes cycles. It makes radiance more valuable through contrast. Even what seems unfavorable serves a positive purpose in the divine design. And so, one day was complete. The first evening, the first morning, the first rotation of a design that would unfold over 6 days. Each day building upon the previous one. Each creative act preparing the way for the next. It all began here with radiance, with separation, with order imposed upon chaos. The shapeless emptiness began to take form. The void began to fill. The darkness began to illuminate. The divine had spoken. Creation had responded. And it was good. The first day was complete. 5 more awaited. The vault organizing the universal aquatic masses. The second day began where the first ended. Radiance and shadow now existed in rhythm. Day and night marked the movement of time. Yet the waters of the deep still encircled everything, unorganized, undifferentiated. The divine spoke the second creative command. Let there be a vault between the waters to separate water from water. The Hebrew term is rakia, signifying something hammered out, beaten thin, stretched across. Primeval translations render it as firmament. Contemporary versions often use expanse or vault. The word suggests something substantial yet distributed outward, something that can support mass yet span distance. The divine fashioned this expanse, using it to separate the waters above from the waters below. The primordial deep was now divided, organized, arranged into separate domains. This can confound contemporary readers. Waters above. Above what precisely? We understand oceans and rivers. We are familiar with atmospheric water vapor. But waters above the atmospheric dome? Ancient Near Eastern cosmology conceived of the cosmos differently than we do. The visible atmospheric dome was understood as a solid covering, holding back celestial waters. Rain represented those waters seeping through. The deep below was the source of springs and oceans. Creation meant organizing these chaotic waters into ordered structures. Genesis uses this ancient framework to convey truth. Whether the specific mechanism aligns with our scientific models is less important than the theological reality. God imposes order upon disorder. He establishes boundaries. He separates what was once combined. Thus, the divine fashioned the vault, separating the waters below from the waters above. Fashioned, from the Hebrew asa, can mean create, shape, or construct. The divine molds the expanse from existing substance. This is the first use of this specific verb in Genesis. On day 1, the divine spoke, and radiance manifested. On day 2, he fashioned something, constructing it, shaping it with purpose. The passage emphasizes the separation. Waters below, waters above, expanse between. This spatial organization builds upon the design of day 1. First, radiance separated from shadow. Now, waters separated from waters. Creation advances through separation, differentiation, and classification. What does this expanse do? Create space between the waters. Now there is room for an atmospheric dome, for a gaseous mixture, for an atmospheric layer, for the domain where birds will ultimately fly and atmospheric moisture will form. The creation of space is itself a creative act. The expanse also establishes perpendicular composition. Before, everything existed as an undifferentiated mass of water and shadow. Now there is upward and downward. There is above and below. Space now has dimension, trajectory, alignment. The divine designated the expanse. He identified the vault as sky. The Hebrew is Shemayim, celestial spaces, the same term used in verse 1. At the start, the divine fashioned the celestial spaces and the terrestrial sphere. But here, it specifically refers to the visible atmospheric dome, the atmospheric layer, the domain between the waters. This creates an intriguing stratification. There are celestial spaces beyond celestial spaces, the spiritual domain where angels reside, the expanse between the waters, the place where celestial bodies will soon exist. Each domain is unique yet interconnected, each a component of the structured universe. Day 2 drew to a close. Evening came, morning followed, the second day complete. Yet, something was missing. God refrained from declaring this day's work good. Every other day earns this pronouncement. The second day does not. Why? Scholars have long debated this absence. Some suggest that the waters overhead still symbolized unresolved chaos, not yet fully structured. Others observe that day 2's labor remained incomplete until day 3, when solid ground emerged and the lower waters gathered into oceans. Perhaps God reserved the good declaration until the arrangement of the waters was fully concluded. Alternatively, the passage might be emphasizing different aspects. The missing good doesn't imply that the expanse carried negative value. The assessment might come later, a theological annotation rather than a universal judgment. The critical element remains function. The firmament establishes the framework essential for subsequent events. Without this division, without this expanse, the continuing creative works could not unfold. Sky must exist before the sun and moon can be placed within it. Atmosphere must be present before birds can fly through it. Oxygen suitable for breathing must exist before land creatures can populate the earth. Ancient audiences would have interpreted this imagery within their cultural understanding. They perceived the sky as a solid barrier. What other explanation could there be for the water not constantly falling? They accepted cosmic waters as reality. How else did rain originate? Genesis meets them within their paradigm while revealing a deeper truth. God is not struggling against chaos. He is arranging it systematically. He is not fighting rebellious waters. He is commanding their movement. The waters possess no volition, no awareness, no opposition. They move where God directs, remaining where God assigns them. This reflects God's complete sovereignty. Even the most turbulent aspects of the pre-creation condition, the shapeless emptiness, the dark waters respond to his utterance. Nothing exceeds his authority. Nothing defies his intention. The expanse also establishes a division between earthly and heavenly domains. What exists above differs from what lies below. The terrestrial and celestial begin to distinguish themselves, though they remain linked through the expanse itself. One creative work bridging both. For ancient Hebrews, this understanding of the cosmos wasn't primitive, but rather sophisticated. It accounted for their observations while establishing God's ultimate authority. Contemporary cosmology reveals greater intricacy. Enormous space, countless galaxies, universal measurements. Yet the theological reality persists. God organized everything systematically. The firmament stands as evidence of divine construction. God doesn't simply generate raw materials. He arranges them purposefully. He constructs systems. He creates relationships among elements. Creation isn't haphazard accumulation, but intentional integration. 2 days finished, 2 acts of division completed. Light separated from darkness, waters divided from waters. The shapeless void started to assume form. The chaos began to yield to order. But the structuring continued. The expanse remained suspended, dividing the waters. Now, the lower waters required their own arrangement. The enormous deep had to transform into oceans. And amid those oceans, something completely unprecedented had to appear. Solid ground, terrain, oceans, and plant life. A livable world was taking shape. Day 3 delivered a dual creation. God spoke his command. Let the waters under the sky be gathered to one place, and let dry ground appear. Straightforward words, extraordinary result. The waters below the expanse, which once blanketed everything, began to relocate. They streamed, accumulated, and concentrated themselves. They exposed something underneath: ground, soil, solid terrain, a stable foundation. The Hebrew term is yabasha, dry terrain, as contrasted with the oceans. For the first time since creation commenced, something existed that wasn't water, wasn't darkness, wasn't a spiritual dimension. Something firm, something dependable, something capable of supporting mass. And it became reality once more. The immediate compliance. God issued a command. Creation obeyed. 0 resistance, 0 postponement. The waters gathered. The terrain rose or became visible. Mountain ranges and land masses assumed form. The passage describes this with refined efficiency. It doesn't specify methodology. It simply declares the outcome. The process matters less than the achievement. God desired terrain and oceans separated. Now they existed separately. He assigned them names. God designated the solid ground land, and the gathered waters he designated seas. 2 domains, 2 functions, 2 habitats. Each would accommodate different life forms. Each would fulfill different roles in the ecosystem God was constructing. And God saw that it was good. The assessment arrived. The water arrangement initiated on day 2 now reached completion. The shapeless void had transformed into organized space. Light and darkness, atmosphere and waters, terrain and oceans, order emerging from chaos, structure emerging from formlessness. But God hadn't concluded day 3. He spoke once more. Let the land produce vegetation. Seed-bearing plants and trees on the land that bear fruit with seed in it, according to their various kinds. This marked the first biological creation. Plants, vegetation, living organisms that would grow, reproduce, and blanket the terrain. The directive went to the terrain itself. Let the land produce. God empowered the soil to generate life, not from nothing this time, but directly from the ground. The earth became productive, generative, life-producing, and it responded. The land produced vegetation. Plants bearing seed according to their kinds, and trees bearing fruit with seed in it according to their kinds. Notice the stress. According to their kinds. This expression appears repeatedly throughout Genesis 1. Plants of one category yield their own category. Trees of one variety produce fruit with seed of that variety. Boundaries existed. Classifications, separations. This wasn't unsophisticated biology. It represented observable truth. Apple trees yield apples, not citrus. Wheat yields wheat, not barley. Each plant reproduces authentically to its character. Variation occurs within categories, yet the categories stay separate. The passage also stresses reproduction capacity. Plants bearing seed, fruit containing seed. Every plant was fashioned with the ability to reproduce. They didn't merely exist statically. They increased. They expanded. They populated the terrain God had prepared for them. This demonstrates remarkable wisdom in the creative order. Plants preceded animals. This created excellent biological logic. Plants don't require animals for survival. Many need only soil, water, and light. But animals require plants. Herbivores consume vegetation. Carnivores consume herbivores. The nutritional chain originates with plants. Therefore, God fashioned the foundation of the land-based ecosystem. First, before any creature walked or soared or swam, the terrain turned green. The velocity was striking. During this single day, the complete plant kingdom emerged. Every variety of grass and grain crop, every category of shrub and bush, every tree species, olive trees laden with fruit, cedar trees towering and aromatic, flowering plants in innumerable colors, all within one day. All matured, all producing seed, all prepared to support the life arriving next. This wasn't gradual evolutionary development across vast ages. This represented instant mature creation. God didn't plant seeds and await their growth. He fashioned grown plants producing fruit containing seed. The world on day 3 contained forests, not seedlings. Meadows, not exposed soil. Why mature creation? Because the world God constructs must operate instantly. When animals arrive, they need nourishment ready. When humans emerge, they need sustenance accessible. No time exists for waiting, no allowance for gradual progression. The creation demonstrates purpose, direction, completeness. The beauty must have been overwhelming. Envision the initial landscape. Fresh earth, optimal moisture, perfect temperature, light streaming downward. Every plant at maximum health. Zero disease, zero deterioration, zero struggle for resources. Simply abundant, flourishing vegetation blanketing enormous land masses, colors throughout. Green in 1,000 variations, flowers in every shade, fruits maturing, grains swaying, trees standing magnificent. A world transformed from water and stone into a garden planet. This represents terraforming at divine velocity. The exposed terrain became habitable not across millions of years, but within hours. From sunrise to sunset on day 3, Earth transitioned from barren stone to a living ecosystem. The provision this demonstrates is overwhelming. God prepares everything before the inhabitants arrive. He arranges the table before seating the guests. Every requirement anticipated, every system established. Day 3 also completed the first half of Creation Week. 3 days of forming, structuring, arranging, light and darkness, atmosphere and oceans, terrain and vegetation. The following 3 days would emphasize filling these spaces with occupants. Yet already the pattern emerged clearly. God operates systematically. He constructs foundations before introducing complexity. He creates environments before placing residents. Every step prepares for what follows. And God saw that it was good. The expression appears twice during day 3, once for the terrain and oceans, once for the vegetation. Double confirmation, double endorsement. The labor wasn't simply acceptable. It was good. It fulfilled God's intention. It mirrored his character. 3 days finished. The world now possessed light, atmosphere, water, terrain, and plants. Contained time, space, matter, and life. The fundamentals were established. Yet the stage, though constructed, remained vacant. The garden, though planted, lacked a gardener. The forest, though laden with fruit, had no one to consume it. The spaces required filling. The resources awaited utilization. The beauty awaited observation. Creation possessed structure. Now it required population. And that would commence tomorrow. Celestial bodies and seasons arranging time within space. Day 4 represented a transition point. The initial 3 days formed spaces: light and dark, atmosphere and oceans, terrain and vegetation. Now the forming paused temporarily. The filling commenced. God spoke his word. Let there be lights in the vault of the sky to separate the day from the night, and let them serve as signs to mark sacred times, and days and years. Lights, plural, not the light from day one. That was pure radiance, perhaps divine presence illuminating creation. These were distinct objects, physical sources, bodies that produce or reflect light. 3 functions were outlined. First, division. These luminaries would distinguish day from night. The boundary created on day 1 now received permanent celestial markers. No longer would light simply exist without a source. It would possess sources, origins, established points. Second, indicators. The luminaries would mark sacred times, seasons, and festivals. They would provide humanity with methods to measure time beyond simple daylight cycles. Months, years, the progression of decades, the pattern of planting and harvesting, the scheduling of religious observances. Third, governance. Let them be lights in the vault of the sky to give light on the earth. These were functional assignments. The luminaries existed for a purpose. They weren't ornamental. They weren't random. They were positioned, designed, and designated for particular tasks. God fashioned 2 great lights: the greater light to govern the day and the lesser light to govern the night. He also fashioned the stars, instruments, objects. They weren't deities for worship, but rather lamps to provide service. The greater light governed the day. This was the sun, though we must understand its function through an ancient perspective. The sun wasn't the source of day one's light. Rather, it became the appointed ongoing source. God consolidated the illumination into a particular body and positioned it to accomplish his intentions. The sun possessed incomprehensible magnitude. Nuclear fusion within its core released energy requiring 8 minutes to reach Earth. It contained 86% of the solar system's total mass. Its surface temperature surpassed 5,000 degrees Celsius. Internally, temperatures reached millions of degrees. Ancient peoples couldn't measure these properties. Yet they observed the sun's effects, provided warmth. It enabled growth. It marked the passage of days. They grasped its significance, even lacking the ability to explain its mechanisms. The lesser light governed the night. This was the moon, Earth's sole natural satellite. It produced no light of its own. It reflected the sun's light, a pale mirror in the darkness. Nevertheless, it fulfilled crucial functions. The moon's gravitational influence created tides. These tides mixed ocean waters, distributed nutrients, and enabled coastal ecosystems. The moon's phases offered a natural calendar. Many ancient cultures measured months by lunar cycles. The Hebrew calendar still does. He also fashioned the stars, 5 words, such brevity for such vastness. Billions of galaxies, each containing billions of stars, light years of distance, varieties beyond calculation. Red giants and white dwarfs, pulsars and quasars, nebulae where stars form, black holes where they perish, all dismissed in 5 words. This wasn't ignorance or neglect. It represented perspective. From Earth's surface, stars appeared as points of light. They functioned as navigational tools, seasonal indicators, and sources of wonder. Their physical characteristics mattered less than their role in Earth's narrative. God positioned these luminaries in the expanse, the firmament fashioned on day 2. God positioned them in the vault of the sky to give light on the earth, to govern the day and the night, and to separate light from darkness. Positioning them, arranging them, organizing them with precision, the sun at the optimal distance. Nearer, and Earth combusts. Farther, and it freezes. The moon at the correct orbit. Nearer, and tides become devastating. Farther, and they vanish. The stars distributed across the sky, forming patterns ancient peoples would identify. Constellations that would direct travelers, designate seasons, inspire narratives. Orion and Pleiades, the bear and the serpent. Job and Amos referenced these by name, demonstrating how early humanity recognized and monitored them. These celestial bodies established Earth's environment. The sun powered weather patterns. Its heat evaporated water, forming clouds and generating rain. The seasons resulted from Earth's tilt relative to the sun. Summer and winter, spring and autumn, each enabling different plants to flourish, different patterns of life to prosper. Absent the moon, Earth would oscillate on its axis. The climate would be chaotic, unstable, and hostile to complex life. The moon stabilized Earth's tilt, maintaining the conditions and permitting diverse ecosystems to persist. The luminaries also orchestrate time with remarkable precision. The Earth's rotation defines a day, a complete orbit around the sun marks a year, and the moon's cyclical dance dictates a month. These aren't arbitrary constructs imposed upon the universe. They are inherent rhythms, woven into the very fabric of creation. God himself recognized and validated this order, deeming it good on the fourth day. Divine endorsement seals the luminary's purpose. The sun, moon, and stars illuminate the world, govern its cycles, and designate time. In doing so, they enable life in all its forms and prepare the stage for what is yet to come. Yet, a fascinating paradox emerges. The sun, seemingly so powerful and essential, is fashioned after the plants. This defies our intuitive expectations. Plants, after all, require sunlight for photosynthesis, converting its energy into sustenance. They appear utterly dependent on it. And yet, Scripture reveals they existed for a full day before the sun was even created. How could this be? The implication is profound. They were sustained by the primordial illumination of day one. God provided for them directly, bypassing the intermediary of the sun, until he established the permanent celestial system. This underscores God's omnipotence. He can sustain life with or without secondary causes, with or without the systems he puts into place. Some theologians propose a different interpretation, that the sun existed from day one but was obscured by a dense atmosphere or debris, only becoming visible on day 4 as the skies cleared. This reconciles the biblical narrative with the known botanical requirements for plant life. Others maintain a more literal reading, that plants existed before the sun because God miraculously sustained them for that initial day. Direct divine provision preceded the established order. Both interpretations, however, ultimately affirm God's power and wisdom. The theologically significant point is the underlying principle. God doesn't require the sun. The sun requires God. Every moment the sun combusts, every photon it releases, every ray that reaches Earth is sustained by the Creator who fashioned it. The luminaries in the atmosphere become silent witnesses to divine authority. They obey the laws God established, move in orbits he specified, and shine with energy he supplies. They are magnificent servants of an even more magnificent master. For days are now complete. Structure is established. Light possesses sources. Time possesses indicators. Day and night possess governors. The stage is set, the environment is prepared. Now the filling accelerates. The spaces require filling with motion, with life, with sound. And so, God prepares to populate his creation with abundant creatures filling the oceans and atmospheres. Day 5 erupts with life. Let the water swarm with living creatures, and let birds soar overhead across the vault of the atmosphere. Swarm, the Hebrew word shiratz, signifies teeming, moving in multitudes, filling completely. God commands abundance, not scarcity. The waters won't contain merely a few scattered fish. They will swarm with life. This marks the initial animal creation, creatures possessing consciousness, mobility, and sensation. Not plants anchored in place, but beings that move, hunt, flee, mate, and nurture their young. So God fashioned the great creatures of the ocean, and every living thing with which the water swarms and that moves about within it according to their kinds, and every winged bird according to its kinds. Fashioned, the Hebrew bara, appears here for the first time since verse 1, where God fashioned the heavens and the earth. Now he fashions animal life. This verb indicates something entirely new, something that cannot be derived from existing material alone. Consciousness enters the physical domain. The great creatures of the ocean, tannin in Hebrew. This term can indicate sea monsters, dragons, serpents, or simply very large aquatic animals. Ancient peoples told stories of terrifying sea creatures, but Genesis demystifies them. They are not deities or demons, but creatures God fashioned under his authority, serving his intentions. Whales breaching the surface, dolphins leaping through waves, sharks patrolling the depths, schools of fish numbering in the millions, octopi changing colors, jellyfish pulsing, translucent creatures in the deep ocean where no illumination penetrates, bioluminescent, strange, perfectly adapted to extreme pressure and darkness. All this variety emerges on day 5. The waters, empty yesterday except for vegetation along the shores, now swarm with life. Motion is everywhere. The oceans cease to be barren expanses and become vibrant ecosystems. The passage emphasizes kinds once more, creatures according to their kinds. Fish of one category yield fish of that category. Whales yield whales. Seals yield seals. Each kind remains distinct, identifiable, stable. Yet, God doesn't stop with aquatic life. He introduces the aerial dimension, and every winged bird according to its kinds. Birds, creatures that soar through the atmosphere, the expanse fashioned on day 2. Eagles soaring on thermals, hummingbirds hovering at flowers, geese flying in formation across continents, owls hunting silently in darkness, sparrows flitting through branches, feathers of every color, songs of every variety, nests in every location. Some birds swim and dive. Some never contact water. Some run yet barely fly. Some migrate thousands of miles. The variety is overwhelming. More than 10,000 species of birds exist today, each with unique characteristics, behaviors, calls, each perfectly designed for its ecological niche. Birds and fish share something significant. They inhabit fluid domains. Water and air both constitute fluids, dynamically speaking. Swimming and flying both require navigating through substances that flow. Both require specialized body designs. Fins and wings, scales and feathers, gills and lungs. God fills both fluid domains on the same day. The pattern continues, forming then filling. Day 2 forms atmosphere and oceans. Day 5 fills them. The structure receives its occupants. Then, God does something he hasn't done previously. He speaks directly to creatures. God blessed them and declared, "Be fruitful and increase in number, and fill the water in the oceans, and let the birds increase on the earth." Blessed them. The initial blessing recorded in Scripture. God bestows favor, enables flourishing, empowers reproduction. This isn't merely permission. It represents enablement. God grants these creatures the capacity and drive to multiply, be fruitful, reproduce, fill the oceans, and increase on the earth. These aren't neutral observations, but rather commands. God ordains that life will reproduce, will expand, will populate available habitats. This blessing creates a pattern. Life seeks more life. Reproduction is integrated into biology, the drive to mate, to nest, to protect young. All of this reflects divine intention. God designed creatures to multiply themselves. The oceans respond. Fish spawn in millions. Some species deposit thousands of eggs. Others, like sharks and whales, have few offspring, yet invest heavily in their care. Each strategy operates within its kind. Birds respond. Nests fill with eggs. Parents feed hungry mouths. Juveniles fledge and soar. Populations grow. Species expand. Within one day, the quiet oceans become noisy with life. Whales sing. Dolphins click. Seagulls cry. The planet gains a soundtrack. Day 5 also reveals God's creative power at a new level. Plants, while alive, remain relatively simple. Animals possess nervous systems, brains, instincts, and behaviors. They solve problems. They communicate. They care for young. They play. A dolphin isn't a plant. The complexity is orders of magnitude higher. Sophisticated sensory systems, coordinated muscles, internal organs working in concert. Fish possess circulatory systems pumping blood through gills to extract oxygen from water. Birds possess hollow bones to reduce mass for flight, hearts that beat hundreds of times per minute, and incredible visual acuity. God fashions this complexity within a day, not through gradual development across vast ages, but rather through direct, immediate creation. Every system is completely functional. Every instinct is completely formed. The initial eagle can soar. The initial fish can swim. Zero trial and error, zero learning curve, perfect design from the beginning. And God observed that it was good. The assessment arrives. The ocean creatures are good. The birds are good. They accomplish their purposes. They reflect divine wisdom. They contribute to creation's glory. 5 days are now finished. Light and darkness, atmosphere and oceans, terrain and plants, sun, moon and stars, ocean creatures and birds. The world hums with activity. Waves crash filled with life. Atmospheres fill with wings. The planet is no longer silent or motionless. Yet one domain remains unpopulated. The terrain possesses plants yet no animals. The continents are green yet empty of mobile life. The forests lack the sounds of mammals. The plains lack herds. That's about to change. Day 6 will complete creation's physical domain. The terrain awaits its occupants. And they're arriving, the beasts of the earth, the age of giants. Day 6 commences. After 5 days of cosmic construction and teeming life, God speaks once more. This time, his words shape creatures that will walk, crawl, and thunder across the earth itself. Let the earth generate living creatures according to their kinds, livestock and creeping things and beasts of the earth according to their kinds. The ground responds. From the soil emerges a menagerie unlike anything that came before. These represent land dwellers, creatures designed for terrain rather than water or atmosphere. The Hebrew word chia describes them, living things, animate beings with breath and purpose. Yet more than that, they represent a diversity that stretches the imagination. Cattle appear initially in the passage, domesticated animals that will subsequently serve humanity. Then arrive the creepers, the small things that scuttle and slide. Finally, the chia proper, wild beasts. This category captures everything from the smallest ground dweller to the most massive creature ever to walk the earth. Consider the scale of what God fashions in these moments. The passage doesn't limit size or stature. Ancient peoples grasped this. The Book of Job preserves descriptions of creatures that defy simple categorization. Behemoth, described as chief among God's works, moves with power that makes mountains appear small. Its tail sways like a cedar. Its bones are like bronze. Its limbs like bars of iron. Scholars debate whether this describes a hippopotamus, an elephant, or something else entirely. Yet the language suggests magnitude beyond our familiar experience. The passage emphasizes raw power and unmatched strength. This creature consumes grass like an ox, nevertheless possesses might that seems almost primordial. The fossil record confirms what ancient passages hint at. The earth once hosted animals of staggering proportions, creatures whose very existence challenges our understanding of biology and physics. The tannin, great creatures of Genesis 1 verse 21, weren't confined to the oceans. Terrain supported giants as well. Yet this isn't about monsters. It's about majesty. Every creature God forms receives his assessment. Good. The word tov appears once more, that declaration of functional perfection. These animals accomplish their purpose completely. They occupy their niches with precision. The ecosystem balances itself because the designer understood every relationship, every dependency, every connection. The phrase, according to their kinds, repeats throughout this passage. 10 times in Genesis 1, this formula appears. Creates boundaries. Dogs yield dogs. Cattle yield cattle. The variation within these boundaries is enormous. Think of the difference between a wolf and a chihuahua. Yet the categories stay distinct. God builds flexibility into his creation while maintaining order. Envision the earth in these hours. Silence broken by new sounds, footfalls that shake the ground, roars and calls, and the rustling of creatures finding their place. Predator and prey don't exist yet. That arrives later after the fall. For now, everything consumes vegetation. The lion grazes beside the lamb. The massive behemoth feeds peacefully in the marshes. Death hasn't entered the equation. This world operates on principles we can barely grasp. The second law of thermodynamics, entropy, decay, appears suspended. Plants don't wither. Animals don't age beyond their prime. The entire system exists in perpetual renewal. Scientists call this a steady-state system. Theologians call it paradise. Yet we're getting ahead of ourselves. The animals are forming now in real time. God speaks, and from the ground, they arrive. Not through millions of years of gradual change, but rather through immediate creative command. The Hebrew bara and asa, create and make, indicate direct action. God doesn't await processes. He commands and reality obeys. Consider the intelligence required to design a single species, the complexity of an eye, the elegance of a wing, the precision of a digestive system. Now, multiply that by the thousands of species emerging on day 6, each one perfectly suited to its environment, each one carrying information in its genetic code that defies random assembly. The sheer variety speaks to an artist who delights in diversity. God doesn't fashion one variety of bird, one variety of fish, one variety of land animal. He fills the earth with forms that range from the microscopic to the gigantic, from creatures that burrow underground to others that will subsequently climb the highest peaks. Every ecological niche receives its occupant. Some of these animals possess abilities that seem almost supernatural, migratory instincts that guide birds across continents, echolocation that allows bats to navigate in total darkness, the metamorphosis of certain insects. These aren't accidents of evolution. They're engineered solutions to particular challenges. The terrain itself must be ready for this influx. Day 3 created the continents and the vegetation. Now, those plants fulfill their purpose. They provide nourishment for the plant eaters. They offer shelter for the small creatures. They establish the foundation of a food web that won't include death for flesh, yet still maintains balance and beauty. Ancient Near Eastern cultures narrated their own creation stories, chaotic battles between deities, creatures born from violence and bloodshed. Yet, Genesis presents a radically different picture. The God of Israel speaks order into being. His creatures emerge from blessing, designed with purpose and care. There's no cosmic struggle here, no primordial combat. Simply the calm authority of a sovereign who knows precisely what he's doing. The passage moves quickly through this creative burst. Yet, that brevity shouldn't suggest insignificance. The foundation is being established for humanity's dominion. These animals will fulfill purposes we can only partially comprehend. Some will become companions. Others will provide labor. Many will simply exist as expressions of God's creative joy. Job chapter 38 captures this perspective. When God finally speaks to Job from the whirlwind, he doesn't begin with theology or philosophy. He points to creation. Where were you when I established the foundation of the earth? He asks about the mountain goat, the wild donkey, the ostrich, the horse. These creatures reveal something about their maker. Their existence testifies to a wisdom far beyond human comprehension. Day 6 isn't concluded yet. One more creative act remains, one that will tower above all others in significance. Yet, before that crowning moment, God fills the earth with these beasts. They create a baseline. They demonstrate what creaturely life looks like. Beautiful, powerful, diverse, yet still limited to instinct and natural function. Psalm 104 later celebrates this menagerie. The mountains belong to the wild goats. The rocks provide refuge for the badgers. Young lions roar for their prey. The earth is satisfied with the fruit of God's labor. The psalmist perceives what day 6 creates, a world where every creature possesses its place, where divine provision extends to the smallest and largest alike. The ground that formed these beasts will soon form one more creature. Yet that one will be different. The animals arrive forth from the earth. The next being will arrive from the earth as well, yet also from something else, something higher, something that carries the very image of the Creator himself. For now, though, the earth swarms with life. Mammals of every description, reptiles, amphibians, creatures that defy easy categorization, all of them marked with that repeated phrase. According to their kinds, all of them receiving God's endorsement, all of them contributing to a world that grows more complex and more wonderful with each passing moment. The stage is prepared. The world is ready. The drama of human history is about to commence. The divine counsel, let us fashion man in our image. Something shifts. For 5½ days, God has spoken alone. Let there be light. Let the waters swarm. Let the earth generate. The pattern has been consistent, divine command followed by immediate reality. Yet, now at the apex of creation, the language changes. Let us fashion man in our image, after our likeness. Us, our, plural pronouns that have sparked theological discussion for millennia. Who is God addressing? The question isn't academic. It cuts to the heart of the Creator's nature and the significance of what's about to unfold. The traditional Christian understanding points to the Trinity, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit in eternal communion, now consulting before fashioning humanity. Genesis 1, verse 1 uses Elohim, a plural form that takes a singular verb. The Spirit hovers over the waters in verse 2. John's Gospel declares that the Word was with God and was God, and through him all things were fashioned. This isn't one divine being talking to himself. It's the fullness of the Godhead in creative counsel. Yet, another layer exists. The Hebrew Bible preserves hints of something called the divine counsel. Psalm 82 speaks of God standing in the assembly of the mighty. Job's opening chapters describe the sons of God presenting themselves before the Lord. These represent the angelic beings fashioned on earlier days, the heavenly host now witnessing the crown of creation. The phrase, "let us fashion," carries weight in ancient contexts. Kings consulted their courts before major decisions. The plural suggested both authority and deliberation. God doesn't require counsel. Isaiah makes that clear. Yet, he invites his heavenly court to witness this moment. The angels who sang at creation's foundation now observe humanity's formation. The Hebrew word for make here is asa, to fashion, to form. Yet, the preceding word is crucial. Adam, humanity, mankind. The word connects to Adumar, the ground from which the first man will be formed. The relationship between human and earth is embedded in the very names we use. Yet then arrives the radical distinction. In our image, after our likeness. These words, telem and demut, separate humanity from everything else fashioned. The animals arrived forth according to their kinds. They're categorized by nature and function. Humans are categorized by relationship. We bear the image of God himself. What does this signify? Ancient Near Eastern cultures used similar language for idols, images of gods positioned in temples. Kings erected statues of themselves in distant provinces to represent their authority. The image carried the presence and authority of the one it represented. To be fashioned in God's image means humanity functions as his representative on earth. We don't simply inhabit creation. We embody the Creator's authority within it. Yet there's more. The image involves capacity, the ability to reason, to create, to love, to choose. Animals operate on instinct. Humans operate on something higher. We can contemplate eternity, grasp abstract concepts, appreciate beauty, and comprehend morality. These aren't evolutionary accidents. They're reflections of the one whose image we bear. The passage specifies both image and likeness. Some scholars perceive these as synonyms, a Hebrew parallelism for emphasis. Others detect subtle distinctions. Image might refer to function, our role as God's representatives. Likeness might point to character, our capacity to reflect his attributes. Either way, the double description underscores how different humanity will be from all previous creatures. The Trinity's involvement makes sense now. If humans are to bear God's image, that image must be relational. The Father, Son, and Spirit exist in eternal relationship, perfect love, perfect unity, and perfect diversity within oneness. Humanity mirrors this design. We're fashioned for relationship with God, with each other, and with creation itself. The man alone will not be good, the only time that phrase appears in the creation account. We're designed for communion, just as the Godhead exists in communion. Dominion follows naturally from the image. Let them possess dominion over the fish of the ocean, and over the birds of the heavens, and over the livestock, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth. This isn't exploitation. It's stewardship. Kings in the ancient world were judged by how they treated their subjects. God's image-bearers are to rule creation the way God rules, with wisdom, justice, and care. The scope is total ocean, atmosphere, terrain, fish, birds, livestock, wild animals, even the creeping things. Nothing in the created order falls outside human authority. This represents an enormous trust. God is delegating genuine power to creatures fashioned from dust. The risk is staggering. Yet, the image-bearer must possess real authority to truly represent the King. Colossians later reveals that Christ is the true image of the invisible God, the firstborn of all creation. Through him all things were fashioned. Humans are fashioned in God's image. Yet Jesus is that image in its fullness. We're derivative, he's original. We're shadows pointing to the reality. He's the reality itself. This explains why the gospel eventually centers on becoming conformed to the image of Christ. We're being restored to what we were always destined to be. The divine council, a celestial court of angelic beings, bears witness to this monumental pronouncement, their ethereal forms radiating with awe. The angels, who have observed 5 days of creative power, witnessing the cosmos birthed from nothingness, the swirling galaxies, the forming of stars and the oceans, now perceive something unprecedented, something beyond their comprehension. God is fashioning creatures like himself, creatures endowed with the power of choice, the spark of creativity, and the capacity for genuine, reciprocal relationship. The implications reverberate throughout the heavenly realms, shaking the foundations of their understanding. These beings, molded from dust, are capable of love because they possess the freedom to choose it. Yet, the same freedom that elevates them to worship also opens the door to rebellion. They can choose to defy their creator. Satan, watching from his fallen state, his heart a festering wound of pride and envy, must recognize the profound threat. These mud creatures, these beings formed from the very dust he scorns, will bear the image he attempted to usurp. They'll receive the authority he coveted, the dominion he so desperately craved. They'll walk with God in a way he, in his prideful isolation, never did. The seeds of his insidious strategy are already forming in his twisted mind. If he can corrupt the image, he can wound the Creator. If he can turn these image-bearers against their Maker, he can strike at God's own heart, inflicting a pain that will echo through eternity. Yet that's still future, a shadowy plan lurking on the horizon. For now, the council stands in breathless anticipation. A sea of angelic faces turned towards the unfolding drama. The command has been issued. The most significant creative act in history is about to unfold. Not merely another species added to the tapestry of life, but rather a species unlike any other. Creatures who will bear the very stamp of divinity while walking on the earth, breathing the air, and tilling the soil. They're called to steward this planet. The preparation is complete. The planet is ready, a vibrant stage set for its newest actors. The animals are positioned, each in its designated habitat, grazing in the grasslands, soaring through the skies, and prowling the forests. The plants are flourishing, a verdant explosion of color and life. The oceans are teeming with untold wonders. The atmospheres are filled with the breath of life itself. Now arrives the purpose behind it all, the reason for the cosmic construction, the point of the entire 6-day process. Humanity is about to enter the stage. The breath of life, the creation of Adam. God kneels in the dust. The image is almost scandalous to the angelic host. The sovereign of the universe, whose voice commanded galaxies into existence and whose breath ignited the stars, now bends toward the ground, humbling himself before the very dust of creation. His hands, if we can speak in such anthropomorphic terms, gather earth. The Hebrew word Adoma describes this soil, this clay, this fundamental substance of the planet itself. From it he forms the first man, Yatzah. The word signifies to fashion, to mold, like a potter working clay, shaping and refining a masterpiece. It suggests intimacy, precision, care, a meticulous attention to detail. This isn't speaking something into being from nothing, a feat already accomplished countless times during the preceding days. This represents crafting with deliberate attention to every nuance, every contour. The hands that shape stars now shape something far more precious, something that will carry his very image. Contrast this with the other creatures. They arrived forth from the earth at God's command. "Let the earth generate living creatures," he declared, and the ground responded to the divine word, bringing forth a myriad of life forms. Yet Adam doesn't emerge this way. He's formed by God, fashioned with direct touch, molded with personal involvement. The detail matters profoundly. Throughout Genesis chapter 1, God fashions through speech. "Let there be," he commands, and the word accomplishes everything. Yet Genesis chapter 2 zooms in, slows down the cosmic film, and reveals the intimate process, the loving care taken in the creation of man. The cosmic scope narrows to a single garden, a single man, a single moment of divine focus. And in this moment, God doesn't speak creation into being. He shapes it with his hands. The form takes shape before the watching eyes of the angels. Limbs, torso, head, every system aligned with perfect precision, a testament to divine engineering. Cardiovascular, nervous, digestive, respiratory, bone structure designed for upright walking, opposable thumbs for tool utilization, a larynx capable of complex speech, eyes that perceive color and depth, a brain with the capacity for abstract thought, artistic creation, mathematical reasoning. Yet the body lies motionless, perfectly formed, yet lifeless. A sculpture of unmatched beauty, yet without animation. The difference between this form and the living man it will become is about to demonstrate something profound about the nature of human life, the unique spark that sets humanity apart. God leans close, his face inches from the unmoving form. He breathes into the man's nostrils the breath of life. Nesema, the Hebrew word for breath. Yet more than mere oxygen, this represents God's own breath, the divine life force, the animating principle that transforms dust into a living being. The passage is specific. God breathed into his nostrils, face to face, the Creator's breath entering the created, a moment of intimacy that staggers the imagination. And the man becomes a living soul, nefesh chaya, the same phrase used for animals in chapter 1. Yet the process is completely different. Animals receive the breath of life as part of their creation from water or earth. Adam receives it directly from God, a personal and intimate bestowal. This distinction separates human consciousness from animal instinct. We share biology with the creatures fashioned on earlier days. We don't share origin. The man's eyes open. First sight, the face of his maker, a visage of pure love and infinite power. First sensation, breath-filling lungs, a rush of invigorating life. First thought, we can only imagine the torrent of awareness flooding his consciousness. Yet in that instant, Adam possesses something no other creature possesses: immediate conscious awareness of God. He doesn't need to seek his creator or wonder about existence. He knows. The knowledge is integrated into his very being from the first moment of consciousness, a divinely implanted understanding. The body formed from earth will return to earth. Dust you are, and to dust you will return. This isn't a curse, rather a recognition of material reality. The physical component came from the ground, yet the breath that animates it came from somewhere else, from beyond the earthly realm. This duality defines human nature. Earth beings with heaven's breath, material creatures with a divine spark, mud animated by the very life of God. Ancient Near Eastern creation accounts narrate different stories. Humans formed from clay mixed with divine blood, or from the corpse of a slain god, tales of violence and chaos marking these origins. Yet Genesis presents something radically different. No cosmic battle, no divine sacrifice, simply a loving creator deliberately fashioning a being in his image, then personally giving it life. The significance of breath runs throughout Scripture. The spirit, ruach, that hovered over the waters in the beginning is the same word used for breath and wind. When Jesus appears to his disciples after the resurrection, he breathes on them and declares, "Receive the Holy Spirit." The connection between divine breath and divine presence persists throughout the narrative of faith. To receive God's breath is to receive His life, His power, His very essence. Adam stands, muscles coordinate, balance establishes itself, the symphony of the body in perfect harmony. The ground beneath his feet is the same substance that comprises his body. He is, in one sense, animated earth, a living embodiment of the very ground from which he was formed. Yet the breath within him arrives from beyond earth, a gift from the heavens. This tension, material yet spiritual, temporal yet eternal, will define human existence, the constant interplay between the earthly and the divine. We're not angels trapped in bodies. We're not merely evolved animals. We're something unique, something altogether new in the cosmos. Earth and heaven meeting in a single being, a bridge between the physical and the spiritual realms. The man's first moments must involve discovery, a sensory explosion of unprecedented scale. What is this sensation called sight? What are these sounds? The world erupts with sensory input, a kaleidoscope of experiences overwhelming his newly awakened senses. Yet, unlike an infant slowly learning to process stimuli, Adam possesses immediate capacity. His brain is already mature, already capable of language, reason, aesthetic appreciation. He's fashioned adult, formed complete, ready to fulfill his purpose. From the first breath, God speaks to him. The first words a human hears arrive directly from the Creator, a direct connection between the divine and the newly created. We don't know what they were yet, the specific words uttered in that first encounter. We know what follows soon after: commands, purposes, warnings, the framework for a flourishing existence. The relationship begins immediately, without delay. No period of confusion or searching. Adam knows God because God made himself known from the very beginning, establishing a bond of love and purpose from the dawn of human consciousness. The garden awaits, paradise prepared for this moment, a haven of unparalleled beauty and abundance. Trees producing fruit, rivers flowing with pure water, gold in the ground, animals already named by divine foresight, yet waiting for Adam's participation in identifying and ordering. Everything is ready. The stage is prepared. The first human stands in perfection, physically flawless, mentally complete, spiritually innocent, a blank canvas ready to be painted with the colors of life. Yet he's alone, the only one of his kind, the only image-bearer. He possesses God, which should be sufficient, the ultimate source of all joy and fulfillment. Nevertheless, something is missing, a void in his being that even divine presence cannot completely fill. That absence will drive the next creative act, the final flourish of God's masterful design. Yet for now, Adam experiences the world as its only human occupant, unique in all creation, formed by God's hands, animated by God's breath. Standing in a garden that exists solely for his benefit, the dust has become divine handiwork. The clay has become conscious. The earth has produced its greatest inhabitant through God's most intimate creative act. And the breath that started it all, the breath from God's own being, continues even now, sustaining life with every inhale and exhale. Adam is alive. The garden in Eden, a sanctuary and a mandate. God plants a garden, a deliberate act of creation within creation. The timing matters profoundly. Adam exists before Eden. Genesis chapter 2 makes this clear. God forms the man, then plants the garden eastward in Eden, then positions the man there. The Creator prepares a specific place for his specific purpose, a carefully curated environment designed to nurture and sustain his image-bearer. This isn't random wilderness, a haphazard collection of plants and animals. This represents designed sanctuary, Eden. The word suggests pleasure, delight, a place of unparalleled beauty and tranquility. The location is eastward from the perspective of the author writing later, a temporal anchor for the narrative. Some scholars point to Mesopotamia, the land between the rivers, as the likely location. Others propose the region has been lost to geological changes or the catastrophe that later reshapes the world, altering the very landscape. The precise geography matters less than what the place represents. A haven, a sanctuary, a place of perfect harmony between God and man. A garden differs from untamed creation. Gardens require planning, selection, arrangement, deliberate choices about what grows where, what flourishes beside what else. The Garden in Eden is God's deliberate design, a perfect environment for his image bearer, a testament to his loving care. Every plant fulfills a purpose, whether it be aesthetic beauty or practical utility. Every tree offers beauty or utility or both, a symphony of form and function. Water defines the landscape, the lifeblood of the garden. A river flows out of Eden to water the garden, then divides into 4 heads, a symbol of abundance and fertility. The passage names them Pishon, Gin, Tigris, Euphrates. The last 2 are known, familiar rivers that still flow today. The first 2 remain mysterious, their locations lost to time or shrouded in enigma. This river system suggests abundance, fertility, life constantly renewed, a never-ending source of nourishment and sustenance. Ancient peoples grasped that civilization follows water. Agriculture depends on irrigation. The garden's water supply ensures perpetual flourishing, a constant reminder of God's provision. The first river, Pishon, flows around the land of Havilah. Gold is there, good gold, also bdellium and onyx stone. This detail seems odd in a creation narrative, a sudden shift to material wealth. Yet it's revealing. Eden isn't merely an agricultural paradise, a place of sustenance and survival. It's wealthy in resources. The ground contains precious materials, a testament to God's abundant provision. Beauty and utility intertwine, reflecting the multifaceted nature of creation. God's care extends beyond mere survival to abundance and aesthetic delight. The second river, Gin, flows around the land of Cush. The third and fourth, Tigris and Euphrates, would subsequently define Mesopotamia, the cradle of civilization according to conventional history. The geography anchors Eden in real space, grounding the narrative in a tangible reality. This is an allegory or myth, a fanciful tale divorced from the world. The writer describes actual rivers, actual lands, actual minerals, elements of the physical world. The garden existed in history, in geography, in time and space, a concrete reality rather than a symbolic abstraction. Trees fill the landscape, a lush tapestry of green. Genesis 2 verse 9 specifies that God fashions every tree that is pleasant to sight and good for food to grow from the ground. The dual purpose appears once more, beauty and function, inextricably linked. Trees aren't merely utilitarian, providing sustenance and shelter. They delight the eye, their branches reaching towards the heavens, their leaves rustling in the breeze. They provide shade, offering respite from the sun's intensity. They structure the environment, creating a haven for life to flourish. Nevertheless, they also produce fruit, a bounty of nourishment. Leodens Siccius, sustenance and delight join together in a single, perfect package. 2 particular trees deserve our attention, set apart by their unique significance. They're positioned at the heart of the garden, holding significance both in location and in spiritual meaning. One is the tree of life, the other the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. These aren't simply vegetation, mere plants rooted in the soil. They're sacred symbols, tangible expressions of deeper realities, markers of the divine plan. The tree of life represents precisely what you'd expect from its name: endless existence, ongoing life, liberation from mortality. Consuming its fruit would grant deathlessness, eternal life in the presence of God. Later, following humanity's rebellion, God will prevent access to stop corrupted people from existing forever in their broken condition, a merciful act designed to prevent further suffering. For the present moment, though, the tree remains available, its branches laden with the promise of immortality. Adam has permission to eat from it, to partake of its life-giving fruit. Life belongs to him, sustained through this provision from the divine. The tree of the knowledge of good and evil operates differently, representing a different kind of choice, a different path. The very first commandment revolves around it, a defining moment in the relationship between God and man. From any tree in the garden, you're free to eat, God declares, granting Adam unparalleled freedom and abundance. But regarding the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, you must not consume it. On whatever day you eat from it, death will surely come to you. A single stark warning. A single restriction, a solitary limit, one evaluation of trust and faithfulness, a defining moment of choice. The knowledge being referenced isn't academic understanding, a theoretical concept requiring study. Adam possesses knowledge already. He thinks, speaks, comprehends, demonstrating a capacity for reason and understanding. This knowledge comes through lived experience, the understanding gained by participating, the concrete reality of action and consequence. Good and evil aren't theoretical ideas requiring study in a library. They're actualities meant to be encountered, realities that shape the very fabric of existence. God is essentially communicating, place your trust in me to determine good and evil. Don't seize this understanding for yourself. Allow me to remain God. You remain human, and I will guide you in righteousness. The restriction creates the foundation for a relationship, the very possibility of genuine connection. Without the possibility of disobedience, Adam cannot genuinely obey. Without authentic choice, genuine love cannot exist. The tree makes freedom tangible, a physical representation of the power to choose. It provides Adam with an actual decision to make, a fork in the road that will determine the course of human history. Trust versus self-reliance, dependence versus autonomy, God's understanding versus personal determination, the fundamental questions that will shape humanity's destiny. The garden transforms into a sanctuary in the ancient understanding of that word. Not merely a beautiful park, a place of aesthetic delight, but a consecrated space where God resides alongside humanity, a meeting place between the earthly and the divine. Temple imagery in later times echoes what Eden represents, reflecting the foundational structure established in the garden. Cherubim stand guard at both locations, protecting the sacred space from defilement. Trees and flowing waters characterize each, providing sustenance and symbolizing abundance. Both function as meeting spaces between the divine and the human, places of worship and communion. Eden becomes the original temple, the initial place of fellowship between creator and created, a blueprint for all subsequent attempts to connect with the divine. Into this consecrated space, God positions the man, assigning him a sacred task. Genesis 2 verse 15 employs two specific Hebrew verbs, abad and shama, work and keep, serve and protect, revealing the multifaceted nature of Adam's responsibility. The assignment isn't about passive enjoyment, a life of carefree leisure. Adam carries responsibility. He must tend the garden, sustain it, shield it from dangers, an active participant in God's creative work. This same language appears later describing priestly duties in the tabernacle, highlighting the sacred nature of Adam's task. Adam functions as the original priest within the original sanctuary, a caretaker of God's creation. The work contains no hardship, no sense of toil or drudgery. Prior to the curse, labor brings satisfaction, a sense of accomplishment and fulfillment. Caring for the garden means partnering with the growth God already maintains, collaborating with the divine in the flourishing of life. The earth responds willingly, yielding its bounty without resistance. Thorns and thistles haven't appeared yet, the symbols of a broken creation. Exhaustion and frustration play no role in the process. Work becomes worship, a form of communion with God. Service transforms into fulfillment, a source of joy and meaning. Labor expresses love, a tangible demonstration of devotion to the Creator. The assignment reaches beyond the garden's boundaries, a far-reaching mandate with cosmic implications. Genesis 1 verse 28 commissioned humanity to populate the earth and bring it under their care, expanding the influence of God's kingdom. Eden serves as the beginning location, not the ultimate destination, the seed from which a new reality will sprout. The garden is designed to grow outward, its borders expanding to encompass the entire world. As Adam and those who come after him complete their purpose, Paradise's borders stretch further, transforming the world into a reflection of Eden's perfection. In time, the entire planet becomes what Eden already is, a location where God lives among humanity, where creation thrives under rightful stewardship, and where love and harmony reign supreme. Yet vulnerability exists here, a shadow lurking beneath the surface of perfection. The instruction to guard something suggests threats worth guarding against, the ever-present possibility of corruption and decay. Dangers are real even in paradise, a reminder of the fragility of creation. The serpent hasn't shown up yet, his presence still veiled in the future, but the potential for corruption hovers nearby, a looming presence. The garden holds perfection, but it isn't sealed off, impervious to outside influence. Entry remains possible, a gateway for both good and evil. Outside influence can reach it, threatening the delicate balance of Eden's harmony. Adam's duty includes staying watchful, vigilant in protecting the sanctity of the garden. The rivers flowing outward from Eden carry meaning beyond simple irrigation, a metaphor for the expansion of God's kingdom. They indicate Eden sits at higher ground with water descending to the land surrounding it, a source of life and nourishment for the world. The garden occupies an elevated position both physically and spiritually, a sacred space lifted above the mundane. It's the mountaintop, the elevated place, the connection point between heaven and earth, a bridge between the divine and the human. Future temples will be constructed on mountains for exactly this reason, mirroring Eden's foundational structure, seeking to recreate the original sanctuary. Every requirement is satisfied, a testament to God's perfect design. Food grows in abundance, providing sustenance for the body. Water runs continuously, quenching thirst and nourishing the land. Beauty fills every direction, captivating the senses and lifting the soul. God walks through the garden, present and reachable, a constant companion. The animals live peacefully together, reflecting the harmony of creation. Work holds purpose and brings satisfaction, a source of joy and fulfillment. A single boundary exists, one tree among countless others, a testament to the limited nature of human knowledge. Freedom is nearly absolute, a vast expanse of possibility. The prohibition simply emphasizes just how vast the permission truly is, a reminder of the abundance of God's grace. Adam stands at paradise's center, shaped from soil, given life by God's breath, granted dominion over creation, assigned to work and protect, surrounded by loveliness and plenty. One commandment defines the relationship, a test of trust and obedience. One test awaits his decision, a choice between self-reliance and dependence on God. One garden functions as the blueprint for what the whole earth should eventually become, a vision of a world restored to its original perfection. Everything stands ready, poised on the brink of fulfillment. Nearly everything, though. One component remains absent, a missing piece in the tapestry of creation. One statement God hasn't spoken yet, a question hanging in the air. One need awaits addressing, a void in Adam's existence that even paradise cannot completely fill. The isolation that will prompt the final creative work of Day 6 is about to become clear, a revelation that will transform the very nature of human existence. For this present moment, though the garden stands in perfection, a haven of unparalleled beauty, the sanctuary has been prepared, a testament to God's love and care. The assignment is understood, a sacred task with cosmic implications. Adam begins his duties in his God's presence, walking in harmony with his Creator. The work of naming and the question of authority, Adam's initial assignment. God presents the animals to Adam, a procession of life unlike anything ever witnessed. The parade must have been remarkable, a kaleidoscope of color, shape, and sound. Creatures of every kind, birds of every sort, beings large and tiny, all brought before the first human, a testament to the diversity of creation. This isn't simply entertainment, a whimsical display of God's creative power. This is instruction, a practical demonstration of Adam's delegated authority. This marks the beginning of Adam exercising his dominion in practical application, taking his place as steward of creation. Whatever name the man assigned to each living creature, that became its designation, a testament to the power of language. Authority flows through the act of naming, establishing dominion over the created world. In cultures of the ancient world, naming something meant defining it, categorizing it, wielding power over it, a symbolic act of control. Parents name their children, establishing who they are and charting their path forward. Kings rename territories they've conquered, claiming ownership over the land. God names day and night, heaven and earth, declaring supreme authority over everything. Now, Adam names the animals, demonstrating the delegated power God has given him, a tangible expression of his role as steward. But something deeper is happening beyond power relationships, a more profound connection with the created world. Naming requires understanding, a deep and intimate knowledge of the creatures being named. Adam must observe each creature, grasp its nature, recognize its characteristics, delving into the very essence of its being. The ox receives a name, somehow capturing what an ox truly is, the essence of its strength and its role in labor. The lion gets a designation reflecting its qualities, the power and majesty of the king of beasts. This isn't random assignment, a whimsical selection of sounds. This is wisdom functioning in real time, a testament to Adam's intellectual capacity. Think about what this reveals regarding Adam's mind, the complexity of his thought processes. He's only hours old, created fully formed, but still in his initial day of existence, a being newly awakened to the world. Yet, he demonstrates immediate ability to observe, analyze, categorize, and encode his observations linguistically, a testament to the divine spark within him. The Hebrew language itself might be emerging through this very process, born from the act of naming. The first words human lips form are names for creatures God brings to him, a linguistic explosion sparked by divine inspiration. The assignment demonstrates humanity's distinct position, setting humanity apart from the animal kingdom. Animals function on instinct, driven by primal urges and inherited behaviors. They don't name themselves or one another, lacking the capacity for abstract thought. They don't establish linguistic categories, unable to grasp the concepts of classification and organization. They don't participate in abstract thinking about classification and organization, trapped within the confines of their instinctual nature. Adam does, though. This is what bearing God's image looks like in practice, the tangible expression of divine likeness. The ability to bring order to creation through rational thought and language, a reflection of God's own creative power. Genesis 2 verse 19 specifies that God shaped the beasts and birds from the ground just as he shaped Adam, highlighting the shared origin of all life. The shared material source emphasizes the distinction. Identical substance, radically different nature, a testament to the unique spark of humanity. Animals are nefesh chaya, living beings, sharing the breath of life. Adam is that as well, but with something additional, God's image, the breath coming directly from the Creator, the capacity for this very work of naming, a reflection of the divine mind. Watch Adam at work, a study in careful observation. Each animal comes near or is presented to him, offering its unique characteristics to be examined. He observes the form, the movement, the sounds it produces, gathering data with his newly awakened senses. Perhaps God reveals aspects of its nature, its behaviors, its function, sharing divine insights into the creatures he has made. Adam creates a name, a carefully chosen word that captures something essential about the creature, its purpose, its character. Hebrew names weren't random labels, but rather descriptions of character or purpose, a reflection of the inner essence. Each name Adam speaks is a small creative act, imposing linguistic structure onto biological reality, a reflection of God's own creative order. The process serves an additional purpose, a revelation that will set the stage for the next act of creation. Adam is searching, looking for something more than just a name. The text makes this explicit, highlighting the growing sense of unease. For Adam, however, no helper suitable for him was discovered, a realization that shatters the illusion of paradise. Each animal pairs with others of its kind, male and female created simultaneously or one after another, but always as matching counterparts, reflecting a fundamental principle of creation. The cattle have companions, the birds have companions, the lions have their mates, each species complete in its pairing. Every creature has correspondence within its category, a reflection of the divine order. Adam has none, standing alone in the midst of a vibrant and thriving world. The loneliness must intensify with each naming, a growing awareness of his unique situation. Here arrives another species, male and female, united in purpose and affection. Here comes another kind, complete in its pairing, fulfilling the divine mandate to be fruitful and multiply. Adam names everyone, observes everyone, recognizes the pattern, the underlying structure of creation. Companion belongs alongside companion, a fundamental truth of the natural world. Helper corresponds to helper, reflecting a divine principle of mutual support. Adam stands alone, unique, solitary, the only one of his kind, a solitary figure in a world teeming with life. God already knows this, of course. The entire exercise provides revelation for Adam, not information for God. The Creator teaches through experience, guiding Adam towards a deeper understanding of his own being. Adam needs to sense the absence before he can truly value the provision, the gift that is about to be bestowed. He needs to comprehend his uniqueness before he can appreciate his counterpart, the one who will stand beside him. The search that discovers nothing prepares his heart for the gift approaching, a beacon of hope in the face of isolation. The Hebrew phrase ezer negdo appears in this passage. Helper corresponding to him, a profound description of the relationship that is about to be created. The word ezer means helper, but it doesn't indicate subordination, a relationship of subservience. God himself is called Ezer in the Psalms, Israel's helper, the one who rescues, who strengthens, who provides aid in times of need. It indicates necessary assistance, vital support, complementary strength, a partnership of equals. Negdo means corresponding to him, opposite him, matching him, face to face, a balanced and reciprocal relationship. Adam requires someone resembling himself yet different, a partner who shares his humanity but also brings unique gifts to the table. Someone from his own kind yet complementary to him, someone who will complete him in ways he cannot complete himself. Someone sharing God's image but expressing it in distinct ways, a reflection of the multifaceted nature of the divine. Someone to labor beside him to accomplish the mandate together, to populate the earth with descendants who likewise carry God's image, extending the influence of God's kingdom. The animals cannot provide this, their roles limited by their instinctual nature. They're good companions in their own way, providing a connection to the natural world. Later scripture will honor the connection between humans and animals, recognizing their value in the ecosystem, but they don't bear the image, lacking the capacity for spiritual understanding. They don't share Adam's nature, unable to participate in the kind of deep fellowship humanity requires. They're wonderful within their categories, fulfilling their unique purposes, but they're not human, lacking the spark of divinity that sets humanity apart. So Adam names them all, each one in turn. Every species represented among the beasts God shaped from the ground, a vast and diverse array of life. Every bird that takes flight, soaring through the heavens in a display of grace and power. The assignment might require hours or days, a comprehensive and thorough exploration of the animal kingdom. The text offers no timeline, leaving the duration open to interpretation, but it's comprehensive, thorough, a complete survey of the creatures God has made. When it's complete, the animal kingdom has been organized through human language and comprehension, a testament to Adam's intellect and his role as steward of creation. Adam has exercised dominion in its most gentle, most wise form, a stewardship marked by care and understanding. Yet, despite this profound connection to creation, the ache persists, a hollow echo in the chambers of his heart. The awareness of solitude, stark and undeniable. The understanding, deepening with each passing dawn, that among all these creatures, in the midst of this vibrant, teeming life, nothing truly corresponds to Adam himself. No helper fitting his unique requirements, no companion mirroring his essential nature. No one to share the sacred image, the monumental work, the divine mandate, the intimate relationship with God. The rustling leaves whisper secrets he cannot share. The songs of birds echo a joy he cannot fully express alone. This isolation isn't a punishment, a divine decree of loneliness. It's preparation, a crucible forging the path for something unprecedented. God is preparing to unveil a creation unlike any before, a testament to his boundless imagination. The creation of woman will differ profoundly from the creation of man, which itself differed vastly from the creation of the animals. Each step unveils more regarding God's divine intentions and his grand, unfolding plans for creation. First, though Adam must sleep, the meticulous naming is finished, each creature now bearing the mark of Adam's intellect. The vital lesson of distinction and belonging is absorbed deep within his being. The need now is acute, a yearning that resonates within his very soul. Adam has meticulously examined all of creation and found it good, vibrant, and overflowing with life, yet incomplete in its very essence. He stands in paradise, encircled by life in its myriad forms, yet profoundly alone in his particular kind of existence. The moment is undeniably ripe for the final, breathtaking creative work of Day 6. God is preparing to form a helper, a partner, but not from the ground this time. From Adam himself, the most intimate creation yet, the woman who will complete what the man alone cannot be. The animals have their carefully chosen names. Adam is about to receive his counterpart, his equal in every way. The formation of woman, the promise of covenant, the seed of partnership. God causes Adam to fall into a deep sleep. The Tardma in Hebrew speaks of something supernatural, a divinely orchestrated slumber. Adam doesn't simply drift into natural rest, succumbing to fatigue. God brings this sleep upon him, a state far beyond ordinary slumber, a suspension of consciousness. It's the same powerful term used later when God puts Abram into a profound sleep to establish the covenant, a foreshadowing of sacred events to come. Something holy is occurring here, something solemn and weighty. Adam must remain unconscious, shielded from the process, for what's coming next is too profound for mortal eyes to witness. While he sleeps, God performs the original divine surgery. He delicately removes one of Adam's ribs, or perhaps more accurately translated, one of his sides. The Hebrew seller can indicate either rib or side, leading some scholars to propose a portion of his side. Not merely a single bone was taken. Regardless of the precise anatomy, the imagery carries profound depth. Woman doesn't emerge from Adam's head to dominate him, nor from his feet to be trampled underfoot. She comes from his side, a place of honor and equality, to walk alongside him, to be his equal, to share the monumental work and the divine calling. God closes the flesh where it was, with careful attention to detail, precision in the procedure. Adam will awaken with a scar, a permanent marker, a subtle indentation, a constant reminder that something was removed, something essential. A part of him now exists outside of him, walking and breathing under the same sky. The wound has mended, but the absence remains, a quiet hum of incompleteness, until his counterpart is brought forth to stand beside him. From this carefully selected portion of Adam, God constructs the woman. The Hebrew banner is intensely significant. It means to build, to construct with intention, to create something lasting and beautiful. It's used regarding establishing houses, constructing thriving cities, and building majestic temples. It suggests architecture, meticulous planning, intentional design, deliberate construction. God isn't simply forming her as he formed Adam from dust, a simple act of creation. He's building her from living material, from Adam's own essence, from his very substance. The implications are staggering, resonating through eternity. Woman shares Adam's nature completely, mirroring his very soul. She's not a separate species, an afterthought or a lesser being. She's human in exactly the same way he's human, imbued with the same divine spark. Formed from him, she shares his essence, the very core of his being. Bone from his bone, flesh from his flesh. The genetic continuity is perfect, a seamless blend of identities. Yet, she's distinct, not a mere clone. Complementary rather than identical, different in subtle yet profound ways that will ultimately make unity possible. Her distinct perspective, her unique gifts, her individual strengths will complement his in ways he cannot yet imagine. The man awakens. God presents the woman to him, a moment of profound revelation. The presentation echoes the parade of animals, the orderly procession across the newly formed earth. But this time, the response is completely transformed, a symphony of emotions erupting within his heart. Adam has observed every creature, painstakingly named them all, meticulously categorized their place in the divine order. He's discovered nothing corresponding to himself, no reflection of his soul. But now, his first words upon seeing her pour out in poetry, a torrent of emotions overflowing into language. The first poem in scripture, the first song of adoration, the first expression of romantic wonder, a testament to the divine spark that ignites within him. This one at last is bone from my bones and flesh from my flesh. She will be called woman because from man she was taken. The Hebrew creates a beautiful word play between ish meaning man and isha meaning woman, a linguistic connection that binds them in eternity. The names link them linguistically as their very substance links them physically. Adam recognizes her instantly, seeing a reflection of himself in her eyes, a recognition that transcends mere physical resemblance. He sees difference too, complementary distinction that makes true relationship possible. This is what he's been missing, the missing piece of the puzzle, the echo to his lonely voice. This is the helper corresponding to him, the answer to his unspoken prayers. At last, the phrase reveals Adam's silent search and his profound fulfillment. The waiting has gloriously concluded. The incompleteness is answered with her very presence. Here stands the one who matches him, who shares his very nature, who can accomplish alongside him the sacred mandate God has given. She's not an afterthought, a last-minute addition. She's the completion, the crown jewel, the final and highest creative work before God rests, a testament to his divine artistry. The narrator adds a crucial interpretation, a timeless truth that will echo through the ages. For this reason, a man leaves his father and his mother and holds fast to his wife, and they become one flesh. This is covenant language, a sacred vow whispered in the heart of paradise. Marriage isn't merely a social arrangement, a contract to be entered into lightly, or a biological pairing designed solely for procreation. It's reunification, a return to wholeness. Two who were once one, woman from man, becoming one again through covenant commitment, a bond forged in love and sustained by grace. The phrase one flesh carries layers of meaning, a tapestry woven with threads of intimacy and shared purpose. Physical union, yes, the profound intimacy that can generate new life, a miracle of creation unfolding before their very eyes. But also unity of purpose, a shared destiny, a mutual belonging that transcends the individual. What God has joined together becomes inseparable, a bond that defies earthly limitations. The division of Adam into Adam and Eve is reversed through marriage, a return to the original intention. The two function as one, as they were always designed to be, a symphony of two voices blending into perfect harmony. The text notes that they were both naked and felt no shame, a state of perfect innocence. Vulnerability without fear, openness without self-consciousness. This detail matters immensely because it won't endure. Following the tragic fall, shame and covering become immediate concerns, a desperate attempt to conceal their brokenness. For now, though, in paradise, before the corruption of sin, innocence prevails. They stand before each other and before God in complete transparency, souls laid bare. Nothing to conceal, nothing to fear, perfect trust, perfect peace, a glimpse of the divine ideal. Consider Eve's first moments of consciousness, a symphony of awakening senses. Does she awaken in the garden, surrounded by its vibrant beauty? Does she first see Adam, her partner and companion? Then God, her creator and sustainer? The text provides no specifics, leaving room for wonder and speculation. But she knows immediately who she is and what she's for, an innate understanding imprinted on her very soul. She's the helper, the companion, the co-regent, destined to rule alongside Adam in perfect harmony. She shares God's divine image, reflecting his love and grace to the world. She shares the mandate to populate and care for the earth, to cultivate the garden and nurture its bounty. She shares responsibility for the animals, for the unfolding story of creation, for the tapestry of life that will be woven through eternity. The creation sequence establishes a divinely ordained pattern, man first, then woman. But priority doesn't indicate supremacy, a lesson that will be echoed throughout Scripture. Adam needs Eve in ways he doesn't need the animals, a fundamental truth that underscores the depth of their connection. Her creation resolves the first not good in the narrative, a divine acknowledgement of the inherent incompleteness of solitude. Woman completes what man alone cannot accomplish, a testament to the power of partnership. Together, they image God more fully than either could separately, reflecting the multifaceted nature of the divine. Paul later reflects on this, echoing the sentiment across the ages. In Christ, there's neither male nor female, both equally redeemed, equally valued, equally human, bound together in a spirit of love and unity. Yet the creation pattern persists, a reminder of the beauty of distinction. Distinction remains, celebrating the unique gifts and talents of each individual. Complementarity serves divine purpose, weaving together the threads of individuality into a tapestry of perfect harmony. The sacred relationship between man and woman mirrors the sacred relationship between Christ and the Church, covenantal, sacrificial, life-giving, a reflection of divine love in the earthly realm. Eve receives no direct command from God at this point, an indication of the trust placed in Adam's leadership. Adam likely communicates God's instructions regarding the trees, acting as a bridge between the divine and the human. The prohibition against consuming from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil will become central to the approaching crisis, the fulcrum upon which the fate of humanity will hinge. For now, though it remains theoretical, a seed planted in the fertile ground of their minds, still untested by temptation. The tree stands in the garden, a silent sentinel. The command stands in their memory, a reminder of their dependence on God's wisdom. The choice awaits, a shadow lurking on the horizon. They stand together in paradise, united in love and innocence. First husband, first wife, first covenant, first unity, a beacon of hope shining in the newly created world. God's image is now completely manifest, reflected in the faces of man and woman, a testament to his creative power. Male and female, he created them, a divine act of love and intention. The mandate can now be fulfilled, the earth waiting to be populated and cultivated. They can be fruitful and multiply, filling the world with the light of God's image. The work can now proceed, a symphony of creation unfolding under their careful stewardship. Everything God made, he declared good, a testament to his perfect design. After creating humanity, male and female, he declares it very good, an exclamation of joy echoing through the cosmos. The pinnacle is reached, the masterpiece is complete, a celebration of divine artistry. Nothing in creation surpasses this moment. Persons made in God's image, capable of intimate relationship with him and with each other, commissioned to represent his loving rule throughout the earth, stewards of his creation. Day 6 concludes with humanity at peace, bathed in the warm glow of divine favor. Adam and Eve in the garden, hand in hand, hearts intertwined. Work waiting but not burdensome, a joyful collaboration with their Creator. Food abundant, a feast provided by a loving God. Water flowing, life-giving and pure. God present, a constant companion and guide. Animals named and orderly, each fulfilling its purpose in the grand design. The mandate clear, a calling to cultivate and cherish the earth. The prohibition known, a single boundary amidst infinite freedom. The covenant established, a bond of love and loyalty. The unity celebrated, a symphony of two souls merging into one. The stage is set for Sabbath, for rest, for the solemn declaration that creation is finished and all is as it should be. One more day remains in the creative week, but the work is done. The actors are in place. The drama is about to begin, a tale of love, loss, and ultimately, redemption. The original Sabbath, a moment of cosmic perfection and rest, a glimpse of the paradise that was meant to be. Both will fall. The shared sin, a poisoned chalice passed between them, was now inevitable, though the serpent's insidious whispers targeted Eve first. Satan, the architect of rebellion, had infiltrated their idyllic sanctuary. The celestial war, once confined to the heavens, now bled onto the earthly plane, its battleground the hearts of God's cherished image-bearers. The serpent, a master of deception, coiled himself around the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, its bark cool against his scales. His voice, a silken caress, dripped with false concern. Each carefully crafted word, a calculated attempt to sever the sacred bond between humanity and their Creator. The stage was meticulously set for a catastrophe of unimaginable proportions. The prohibition, once a clear and loving boundary, was now shrouded in doubt. God's motives, pure and benevolent, were maliciously impugned, painted as restrictive and self-serving. The fruit, a symbol of divine protection, had been cunningly reframed from a dangerous transgression to a liberating opportunity, a key unlocking hidden potential. All that remained was the choice, the agonizing decision that would shatter paradise. Eden teetered on the precipice of ruin, its pristine beauty poised to be forever tainted. The serpent patiently waited, his eyes gleaming with dark anticipation. Eve, her brow furrowed in contemplation, wrestled with the serpent's enticing proposition. The tree loomed large, its presence a silent testament to the stakes at hand. God, the omniscient observer, allowed the drama to unfold, knowing the heavy price of free will, a gift bestowed upon his creation. The temptation, the looming decision, was a dialogue with deceit, a dance with darkness itself. Eve looked at the fruit. It was not the first time her gaze had lingered upon its tempting form. The tree stood prominently in the midst of the garden, a fixture of their Edenic existence. She had walked past it countless times, its presence a familiar comfort. But something had irrevocably changed. The serpent's cunning words had rewired her perception, twisting the familiar into something alluring and forbidden. What was once off-limits now appeared desirable, a gateway to untapped potential. What was once a protective boundary now seemed like an unjust restriction, a barrier to self-discovery. The text meticulously catalogues her observations, a descent into temptation. The tree is good for food. This was the first assault, a primal appeal to her physical senses. Her body responded to the sight, a subtle stirring of hunger or perhaps a deeper appetite awakening within her. The fruit looked nourishing, pleasant, and utterly satisfying. There was nothing in its outward appearance to suggest poison or death, no visible warning to deter her. It looked like every other fruit-bearing tree in the garden, a vibrant part of their abundant paradise. It's a delight to the eyes, aesthetic appeal. The fruit was undeniably beautiful, a masterpiece of divine creation. Colors, shape, texture, all pleasing to the eye. God had made it this way, crafting the tree to be pleasant to the sight, just like all the other wonders of the garden. Now, however, Eve's gaze lingered longer than it should have. The beauty became a fixation, a consuming obsession. What was meant to be appreciated became coveted, a burning desire to possess what was not rightfully hers. The tree is desired to make one wise. This was the intellectual appeal, the serpent's most insidious weapon. The serpent's promise echoed in her mind, a siren song of forbidden knowledge. Knowledge, understanding, wisdom, the ability to know good and evil as God knows good and evil, the intoxicating prospect of advancement, of transcending her current state, of becoming more than she was. Three potent appeals: body, soul, spirit, the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, the pride of life. John would later categorize all temptation this way, recognizing the timeless pattern. Eve stood at the epicenter of a cosmic battle, facing the archetypal pattern of temptation. Every struggle, every desire, every downfall humanity would ever face was present in this pivotal moment. The flesh yearned, the eyes coveted, the ego craved elevation. She reached out, her hand trembling slightly as her fingers brushed against the smooth skin of the forbidden fruit. The prohibition, as she understood it, said nothing about touching. That was her own addition, a self-imposed boundary erected as a further safeguard. Now, even that fragile barrier crumbled, her resolve weakened by the serpent's calculated lies. She plucked the fruit from the branch, severing its connection to the tree. She held it in her hand, examining it closely, turning it over and over. The moment stretched, an eternity hanging in the balance. She could still choose differently. She could still trust God's word over the serpent's treacherous lies. But she didn't. She eats. The act itself was simple, mundane, almost anticlimactic. She bit into the fruit, the juices bursting on her tongue. She chewed, swallowed. Nothing dramatic happened. No lightning strikes. No voice from heaven thundering condemnation. The fruit tasted good, probably sweet and satisfying. Her eyes didn't immediately open. She didn't instantly become like God. The serpent's promise seemed, at least on the surface, confirmed. You will not surely die. See, she was fine. She felt no different. She was not alone, though. Adam was with her, a silent witness to her transgression. The text reveals this quietly, almost as an afterthought. She also gave some to her husband who was with her, and he ate. Present during the conversation with the serpent, a passive observer while the deception unfolded, or arriving just in time to share the forbidden fruit. The text doesn't specify, leaving his motivations shrouded in ambiguity. His participation mattered differently than hers. Eve was deceived, a victim of the serpent's cunning. Paul later explains this, highlighting her vulnerability. She believed the serpent's lie, thinking she was choosing wisdom, advancement, good. Adam, however, was not deceived. He ate with full knowledge of the command, full understanding of the consequences. His sin was more deliberate, more conscious, more defiant. Why did Adam eat? The text offers no explicit explanation, leaving us to speculate on the complexities of his heart. Perhaps love for Eve made him unwilling to be separated from her, an act of devotion twisted by sin. Perhaps he feared losing her and chose to fall with her rather than remain alone in paradise. Perhaps he doubted God's word just as she did, his faith eroded by the serpent's insidious suggestions. Perhaps he too desired the promised godlikeness, a yearning for power and knowledge that eclipsed his obedience. Whatever the reason, he eats. The fruit went down, a symbol of their rebellion. The command was broken, the boundary crossed, the test failed. Both had disobeyed. Both had chosen autonomy over trust. Both had believed the serpent over God. Both had grasped for equality with deity instead of being content as image-bearers, forever altering the course of human history. The moment of eating passes. They stood together, fruit still in hand, the weight of their transgression settling upon them. God's command violated. The serpent's lie seemingly vindicated. Nothing had happened yet, at least not that they could immediately perceive. The consequences weren't immediate, no divine retribution raining down upon them. Death didn't strike them down. They were alive, conscious, physically unchanged. Then their eyes were opened. The serpent, in his twisted way, had told a sliver of truth amidst his web of lies. Their eyes did open, but not to the godlike wisdom they expected. They saw themselves, truly saw themselves for the first time. They saw each other, stripped bare of their innocence. They saw something they had never seen before. Nakedness, shame, a vulnerability that felt like exposure rather than innocence. They knew they were naked. They had always been naked. Genesis 2 verse 25 stated it clearly. Naked and unashamed. Something had shifted, though. Innocence had transformed into guilt, a corrosive stain upon their souls. Transparency became vulnerability, a terrifying sense of exposure. What was natural now felt dangerous, a source of profound discomfort. They needed covering, a shield against their newfound shame. They needed hiding, a desperate attempt to escape the gaze of both God and each other. They needed protection from each other's eyes, which now held judgment instead of love. They sewed fig leaves together, makeshift garments, aprons, coverings for the parts that now caused them such profound shame. The first clothing, a symbol of their fallen state. The first attempt at self-salvation, a futile effort to atone for their sin. The first religious act, desperately trying to cover what sin had so cruelly exposed. Fig leaves, however, were woefully inadequate. They itched, they tore, they provided little real coverage. They didn't actually solve the problem, only masked it temporarily. The problem wasn't physical nakedness, though that was now a source of shame. The problem was spiritual exposure, their souls laid bare before a holy God. They were vulnerable to judgment, acutely aware of their guilt. The covering they truly needed couldn't come from fig leaves or any human effort. That realization was still coming, a painful lesson yet to be learned. For now, they hid behind their handmade garments, clinging to a fragile sense of security. They avoided each other's eyes, unable to bear the weight of their shared shame. The unity was broken, the oneness shattered. Shame created distance, a chasm widening between them. What was intimate became awkward, strained by unspoken guilt. What was beautiful became a source of discomfort, a constant reminder of their lost innocence. The garden hadn't changed. The trees still flourished, their branches laden with fruit. The rivers still flowed, their waters sparkling in the sunlight. The animals still moved in their familiar patterns, oblivious to the catastrophe that had befallen their human companions. Everything was different, though irrevocably altered by the stain of sin. Sin had entered their world, corrupting everything it touched. The relationship with God was damaged, fractured by disobedience. The relationship between man and woman was strained, poisoned by shame. The relationship with creation itself would soon turn hostile, a reflection of the broken harmony between humanity and the natural world. They heard the sound of God walking in the garden in the cool of the day, a familiar sound that now filled them with dread. Before the fall, this was an anticipated joy, the highlight of their day. God coming for fellowship, a cherished ritual. Time together in the sanctuary, walking and talking as creator and created, as father and children, a relationship built on love and trust. Now, however, the sound triggered fear, a primal instinct to flee from judgment. They hid among the trees, desperately seeking refuge from the divine presence. The first humans, seeking to escape the presence of the one who made them, trying to avoid the God they once walked with freely, using creation itself as a barrier between themselves and their creator. The absurdity was tragic, a futile attempt to defy the laws of the universe. You can't hide from omnipresence, the all-encompassing nature of God. You can't escape omniscience, the infinite knowledge that sees all and knows all. God calls out, his voice filled with sorrow. Where are you? The question wasn't for his information. He knew exactly where they were, hidden amongst the trees. The question was for them, a gentle probe meant to draw them out of their hiding place. Where are you? What has happened to you? Why are you hiding? The gentle inquiry that invites confession rather than demanding it, an offer of grace even in the midst of their sin. The catastrophe was complete. The choice had been made. The fruit had been eaten. The eyes were opened. The shame was real. The hiding had begun. Paradise was about to become exile, a painful expulsion from their idyllic home. Innocence had given way to guilt, forever altering their perception of the world. Trust had been replaced by fear, a corrosive force that would drive a wedge between them and their creator. The world that was perfect, harmonious, innocent, had ended, shattered by their disobedience. The world that would be fallen, broken, longing for redemption, had begun, its future uncertain, its path fraught with peril. The clear's throat serpent had succeeded, at least for the moment. Humanity had failed, succumbing to temptation. God's image in man was marred, tarnished by sin. The mandate was complicated by the curse, a consequence of their disobedience that would ripple through generations. The garden would soon be closed, its gates guarded against their return. Even in this moment of maximum failure, hope persisted, a faint glimmer in the darkness. Though hidden in the conversation that was about to unfold, buried in the judgment that would be pronounced, the promise of a Redeemer, the seed of the woman who would crush the serpent's head, the plan of salvation that existed before the foundation of the world. The story of the fall ends where the story of redemption begins, a testament to God's unwavering love and his eternal plan to restore what was lost. But that's another narrative, a story yet to be fully told. For now, we stand at the threshold, poised on the brink of a new era. The world before Adam, the eternal God, the created angels, the fallen Lucifer, the ordered cosmos, the formed earth, the planted garden, all leading to this moment, this pivotal decision. The first humans have chosen, and their choice will reverberate through eternity. The consequences are coming, inescapable and profound. The world will never be the same, forever marked by the stain of sin. The world that was a prelude to a fallen age. Stop for a moment and look back at what existed before the first tear fell, before sin shattered paradise. A world where death had no dominion, where mortality was an unknown concept, where decay didn't touch the grass, where beauty remained pristine and untouched, where animals grazed side by side without fear or hunger that could only be satisfied through blood. A world of perfect harmony. The lion and the lamb in the same meadow, a symbol of peace and reconciliation, not a sermon illustration, but daily reality. Water flowed pure from Eden's rivers, the Pishon, the Gin, the Tigris, the Euphrates, for life-giving arteries feeding an entire region with abundance. No pollution, no contamination, crystal clear and constant, carrying minerals and nutrients that sustained the garden and everything beyond. Trees that never stopped producing, bearing fruit in every season, their bounty unending. Leaves that didn't wither, remaining vibrant and green. Wood that didn't rot, impervious to the ravages of time. The tree of life stood accessible, its fruit offering perpetual existence to any who ate, a symbol of eternal life within their grasp. Death wasn't inevitable, it wasn't even possible, as long as Adam and Eve continued partaking of what God provided, remaining in communion with their Creator. The ground yielded without resistance, responding to their touch with ease. Thorns didn't exist yet, a symbol of the curse that was yet to come. Thistles waited in the future, part of the punishment not yet pronounced. Adam worked the garden, but the work was joy, a fulfilling expression of his purpose. The soil cooperated, nurturing the seeds he planted. Plants grew where he wanted them, flourishing under his care. Cultivation wasn't a battle against nature, but a harmonious partnership with it, a dance of cooperation. Consider the air itself, pure and untainted. No pollution from industry that wouldn't exist for millennia. No exhaust, no smog, just pure oxygen from billions of plants, a symphony of photosynthesis. All photosynthesizing simultaneously, creating an atmosphere of unparalleled purity. Every breath brought life, a revitalizing influx of energy. Every inhale was uncomplicated by toxins or allergens or disease, a perfect exchange of life-giving air. The animals knew their place, existing in perfect harmony with each other and with humanity. They answered to Adam, recognizing his authority and respecting his wisdom. He named them, establishing his dominion over the animal kingdom. No wildness that needed taming because nothing was wild. Everything was ordered, existing within its divinely appointed boundaries. The newest creation, humanity, ruled with gentle wisdom, exercising their dominion with compassion and care. The older creations, the beasts and birds, submitted without resentment, recognizing the inherent goodness of their rule. Adam and Eve walked together in perfect unity, one flesh in reality, not just aspiration. No argument because their wills aligned perfectly with God's will, a shared purpose guiding their every action. No competition because they served together toward a shared purpose, working in harmony to cultivate and care for the garden. No misunderstanding because sin hadn't yet corrupted communication, their words flowing freely and honestly between them. They walked with God, a phrase that deserves emphasis, a profound truth at the heart of their Edenic existence. Not prayed to a distant deity, a faceless entity shrouded in mystery. Not hoped for occasional intervention, a desperate plea for help from afar. Walked with face-to-face, engaged in regular fellowship, a constant communion with the divine. The Creator strolling through the garden he made, conversing with the image-bearers he fashioned, an intimacy that later generations could barely imagine. No shame existed, a barrier to intimacy and honesty. Naked and unashamed, total transparency, complete vulnerability without fear, a testament to their perfect innocence. They hid nothing from each other, because nothing needed hiding, their hearts open and honest. Innocence reigned, a shield against guilt and condemnation. Guilt was unknown, an alien concept in their pristine world. The conscience operated without the weight of transgression, free from the burden of sin. Pain was absent, a foreign experience in their flawless existence. Eve hadn't yet faced the multiplied sorrow of childbirth, the physical and emotional toll of bringing new life into the world. Adam hadn't felt the ache of muscles strained against resistant ground, the physical exertion of laboring in a fallen world. Thorns hadn't pierced skin, a symbol of the harsh realities that awaited them outside the garden. Disease hadn't invaded bodies, their physical forms operating at peak efficiency, sustained by perfect nutrition and untouched by decay. Sabbath rest was complete, a celebration of God's provision. The seventh day established the pattern, a rhythm of work and rest designed to honor their Creator. Work 6 days in harmony with God's design, laboring with joy and purpose. Rest on the seventh in celebration of His provision, a time of reflection and gratitude. No anxiety about tomorrow, no fear of scarcity, a world of abundance and provision. No pressure to hoard or compete, secure in the knowledge that their needs would always be met. Everything needed was supplied, provided by a loving and generous God. Everything supplied was good, a testament to His perfect creation. The angelic hosts watched this world, observing the unfolding drama with rapt attention. They saw what Satan rejected through pride, his refusal to submit to God's authority. They observed what humanity received through grace, the unmerited favor bestowed upon them by their Creator. Heaven and earth in proper relation, Creator and created in perfect harmony, the plan unfolding exactly as designed, a testament to God's wisdom and power. The serpent moved through this perfection like poison through water, subtly corrupting what was pure. Though his voice dripped honey while delivering venom, his words undermined what God established, sowing seeds of doubt and discontent. His promises offered advancement while delivering destruction, a false hope leading to ultimate despair. The same pride that destroyed him now infected humanity through subtle suggestion, a contagion spreading through their minds. The choice made, the fruit eaten, the eyes opened, the consequences inevitable. For one last moment, though, before God calls them from hiding, before the curse is pronounced, before the exile begins, hold the image of what was pristine, perfect, pure, a garden that was temple, a sanctuary where humanity communed with God, rivers that sustained life without limit, their waters flowing freely and abundantly, trees that fed without failing, their fruit a constant source of nourishment, animals that coexisted without violence, living in peace and harmony, humans who ruled without corruption, exercising their authority with wisdom and compassion, God who walked among His creation without barrier, enjoying unbroken fellowship with His beloved children. This was the world before the fall, a testament to God's perfect creation. This was paradise, the ideal state of existence. This was what all of history will groan to see restored, the ultimate goal of redemption. The sun set on that world even as it rose, casting a long shadow over the future. The innocence ended at the moment the fruit touched their lips, a point of no return. The harmony shattered when shame first whispered its poison, a corrosive force that would forever alter their relationships. The peace broke when they heard God's footsteps and felt fear instead of joy, a tragic turning point in their relationship with their Creator. Every human born after this moment will enter a different world, a world marred by sin and suffering, one where ground resists cultivation, demanding toil and sweat, where childbirth brings pain, a reminder of the curse, where relationships require effort, a constant struggle against selfishness and pride, where work becomes toil, a burden rather than a joy, where death looms as certainty rather than impossibility, a stark reminder of their mortality, where the tree of life stands guarded by cherubim with flaming swords, a barrier against their return to paradise. Buried in the curse that's coming is a promise, a glimmer of hope in the darkness. Though the seed of the woman will crush the serpent's head, redemption will require sacrifice, a payment for their sin. Restoration will demand payment, a price for their disobedience. The plan exists, a divine blueprint for the salvation of humanity. Though the hope persists, the world that was will become a picture of the world that will be, renewed, restored, made even more glorious through the work of a second Adam who succeeds where the first failed, a perfect sacrifice to atone for their sins. For now, though, we stand at the threshold, paradise behind us, exile ahead. The story of life before Adam, the eternal God, the created heavens, the fallen Lucifer, the war in heaven, the formed earth, the ordered cosmos, the planted garden, the shaped humanity, all leading to this precipice, all pointing toward the need for something beyond human effort, a divine intervention to break the cycle of sin and death. The world before the fall is finished, a chapter closed in the history of creation. The world after begins with a question from God, a plea for repentance. Where are you? Everything that follows from that conversation in the garden to the final restoration of all things flows from this moment, a cascade of consequences rippling through eternity. The choice made, the innocence lost, the need for a savior established, the stage set for the drama of redemption. The entire story of life before Adam culminates here, not in triumph, but in tragedy, not in completion, but in complication, not in the preservation of paradise, but in its loss. Even in loss, purpose persists, a divine plan unfolding even in the darkest of circumstances. Even in failure, hope remains, a beacon of light shining in the darkness. Even in the darkest moment of human history, the light of redemption begins to dawn, a promise of future restoration. The world that stands as witness, a stark reminder of what was lost. This is what we lost, the perfect communion with God, the harmony of creation, the innocence of humanity. This is what sin cost, a price paid in suffering and death. This is what Christ came to restore, to redeem humanity from the clutches of sin and death. Someday, when all things are made new, when the new Jerusalem descends from heaven, when God dwells with humanity once more, it won't be paradise regained, a simple return to the past. It will be something greater, a transformation beyond our wildest imagination. The world that was perfected, a creation made even more glorious through the sacrifice of Christ. The garden that existed, transformed into a city, a symbol of eternal life and communion with God. The innocence that ended, replaced by tested holiness, a virtue forged in the fires of tribulation. The choice that failed, redeemed by the choice that succeeded, the ultimate victory over sin and death. That's the rest of the story, though, a narrative that extends beyond the confines of this garden. Our story ends here, poised on the brink of a new beginning, a world forever changed by the choices of two individuals. The world before Adam fully told, a prelude to the drama of redemption. The world after Adam about to